We're gonna change things up a little bit. This is a inside joke, but it's 30 seconds, and y'all appreciate this one.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, this one's for
I'm
you, Scotty Barnes.
done.
Hey yo, doctor, here's another proper track and it's fat. Watch the sniper, time to pay the piper. And let that real shit provoke. See, you's a wanna be low, then you'll get smoked. And I hope that your fans understand when you talk about spraying me. The same records that you.
What happened? All right. Okay. So, quick thing here. I have not monetized this chat, and I have not,
Making is paying me.
turned slow mode on. And given the videos that dropped today, I better do that. So, we're gonna just let Coach Mo on for a minute to just rant, change things up a little bit, give Coach Mo the floor. Coach Mo, I want to hear what you have to say about this while I go quickly do what I didn't do. Mo, what up?
Hey man, hey.
I figured, it's late. I don't want to. I know Coach Mo is probably mad watching this game, so I figure why not give you the floor before 1 a.m.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not mad. I've stated my desire for this team to lose,
Okay.
and like I want to blow it up. The problem with blowing it up, though, like when you think about it, we
Hmm.
don't have a draft pick next year, or at least it's top six protected. So even like you can't break this down to the studs. At least not this summer, you know.
Right.
So I don't know.
What'd you
Um,
think of the game?
I knew we were going to lose when we were up ahead because it was just all mistakes the Clippers were making. And this, like winning games by turnovers, fast breaks, second chance points, those are hustle stats. It's like, it's not a sustainable way to like make a living. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
And if the other team decides to, okay, stop unforced turnovers, be engaged, like care about the game,
Hmm.
your juices are flowing, all that stuff you were feasting on is gone. And now you have to score in the half court, and we can't do that. We took 25 more shots than them, I think, and we lost.
That is true. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's hard to do. I mean, if you showed somebody like this and you were like, "Hey, like we're gonna get this many more shots than the other team," you'd be like, "You'd be hard pressed to lose that. You'd be hard pressed to not win that game by 10 points." This happens a lot, though.
yep. Fred had this horrible 2 for 1 at the end of the half. He just launched it, and then it resulted in a transition corner three for Kawhi, and then we turned it over. It's like these 2 for 1s with like 30 seconds left. They're just so bad. Unless you're Damian Lillard or Steph Curry, I just don't see the point in taking like 30 footers.
Mm,
It's just like we already struggled to score in the half court. Like we're gonna score in 4 seconds to get two shots.
no, I agree with that.
We can't even score in 24 seconds in the half court. But um, again, Siakam disappeared in the fourth quarter. He was nowhere to be found. Minus 12 for the game. Team worst. Two free throws in 41 minutes. The referees are no longer falling for I'm going to run into people, scream, flail my arms, fall on the floor. It's actually disgusting to watch. At least James Harden, there was an art to how he was doing it, right?
Right.
There's an art to the way Demar does it. They're actually legitimately being fouled and they're baiting people. This guy just walks into defenders who have the right to be where they have the right to exist.
Hmm.
It's just
It's tough, man. It's tough. This was a really tough game for a lot of players on this team. Unfortunately, I think this was a tough game for Scotty Barnes as well. The touch around the rim is just,
yeah, it's
it's evaporated.
it's it's gone. It's gone. And
But Yeah, I mean,
You and I disagree on him taking mid range shots. I want him to take as many mid. I want as many mid range shot reps. I want as many.
really?
He needs to develop that Kawhi Leonard mid range post fadeaway, right, where he leverages which way he's going depending on where the defender is where they have their weight, right, where they're guarding, left side or right side. I think
Mm-hmm.
he could get. I don't know. I just like him taking mid range shots. The problem with this roster, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who on this with this roster construction, who does it cater to? Like who on this roster with this roster construction, who's maximizing their talents with the roster?
Fred,
Fred and probably Yak.
pretty much, yeah.
Everyone else, it's just an uphill battle. They're swimming against the current.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a
Dude, I
horrible roster
completely agree with
construction.
that. I saw a comment today, which was, from a person who's been on the show before as a sort of collaborator of ours, Kenyon. So shout outs to Kenyon. And, he made a post on the Raptors group about, hey, like, there's someone out there who seems to think that Scottie Barnes and Jakob Pertl can't coexist because they occupy the same places on the floor together. And he cited a stat in which Scotty's drives are up since the Jakob trade,
Hmm.
and it's a little disingenuous. I think that argument is probably I think it's in bad faith because where he's starting those drives, where he's catching the ball, how he's getting into those shots, and the contest on those shots is totally different. I think Alvin pointed out today when Siakam went up for what felt like his third or fourth, contested layup, floater, whatever. It's just so packed. It's so
Oh
crammed in
my
there.
god,
It is so congested. It
it
has been the
is.
case a lot. And you'll often see Jakob Pertl catch the ball, maybe 17 feet away from the basket, right? He's not looking to shoot. He
No,
he
no.
won't take a shot from there. And so his defender will always go under.
Hmm.
He will always hang back. Now, you think to yourself, okay, well, now I'm just going to throw it to Scottie Barnes and voila, I've created this great shot. But if the player passing could have sucked the guy out, that's three extra, maybe feet of space to attack. Whereas now there's a guy in the way. And this is why I think sometimes analytics in the wrong hands, tracking data in the wrong hands, people who just don't seem to understand. I'm open to understand, like, look, I explored the idea of Jakob potentially helping spacing due to his screening. I don't have tunnel vision. I'm not like, he can't shoot, so he can't space. No, but we've seen it now. He's great. Like, he's been playing super well, right? But in order to allow him to play super well, there are other guys who are now going to have more difficult time scoring. It's just the nature of basketball, right? Alvin Williams today on the broadcast said Russell Westbrook is definitively a starter. He's definitely a starter in this league, and I nearly spit out my coffee. I was like, "Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
I know, I
He's
know,
not."
I
And,
know.
and in fact, it's not a surprise to me that the Clippers were struggling with him on the court, and they bench him and they go for Eric Gordon. Now, Eric Gordon, to those who are paying attention, is not a starter in the NBA anymore,
No,
but he is a shooter
he
who
is.
wasn't hitting shots today, but still he is a shooter. Having spacing out there makes such a difference. The Raptors were not guarding Russell Westbrook. They were allowing him to drive, and he's still a hell of an athlete and a hell of a passer and a hell of a rebounder and a hell of a talent.
Hmm.
But your inability to space the floor for others constricts the offense. There was a stat I believe they presented tonight during the broadcast. I think they said that teams that Russell Westbrook stars for are 1-9. Well, congratulations. Now they have 2 wins. But
But
it
like,
was largely in spite of him, in my opinion.
yeah,
And as a very loud Russell Westbrook critic for pretty much the last, I want to say 12 years. I mean, if you think I go hard on Siakam, you should have met me when I was going hard on
hmm,
Russell
hmm,
Westbrook.
hmm.
But a lot of the same shit I was saying about, Russell Westbrook is the same shit I'm saying about Siakam.
And
You know,
the trait, like to me, when you're, this is where you have to separate emotion from what you see, and it's like imagine the hall
hmm
the Thunder could have got for Westbrook a year after his MVP season, when you knew, okay, all we're doing is losing in the first round. This
For
guy
sure.
still has the MVP shine to him. Before everyone figures out what we already know,
Hmm.
let's get a haul for this guy.
Right.
And it's like the idea of Westbrook has to be a starter, or he's a starter in this league, is the same idea to me that Siakam has to finish games. You're just forcing the situation. And let's talk about the closing lineups for the Raptors.
Sure.
To me, Barnes has to close. Gary has to close, because
Hmm.
those are two. They just have balls of steel and they have no fear, and they
Sure.
could be stinking up the joint for 45 minutes, and I guarantee you they'll show up in the last 3 minutes. Make or miss, they'll show up. I play OG because he's our best defender, and he's shown the history to make big shots.
Hmm.
And then I play Fred too because he's a ball handler and he can space the floor, or at least he's respected in that aspect. To me, if we're going off, do you want to win the game? The fifth guy in that closing lineup, it's going to be Siakam, Yak. I wouldn't rule out someone like Barton, or like, it's just saying Siakam's going to close every fourth quarter and he's going to get the ball and we're going to watch him go one on one and dribble for 15 seconds. Like,
I mean,
we're
they
not
went away
talking,
from him today, so credit where credit is due. They did not force feed him the ball.
but he doesn't even want
In
it. He doesn't even want it. He doesn't even want it.
I guess he saw the low light video. Um,
He's never wanted it in those situations. If he gets the ball and then there's 10 seconds left, he's going to try to do something. But you see what Luka does. You see the great players. You see KD. They go to the ball. They hunt it down. They're like, there's no way I'm not being a part of this possession, right?
right, because at the end of the day, winners want the ball. Winners always want the ball. People who are built, people who want to win want the ball. It's just how they are, right? I resent the comment that people who the first quarter and the second quarter count the same as the third quarter and the
They
fourth quarter.
don't.
They absolutely do not. They flashed a stat tonight showing Kawhi Leonard's pre January 1st numbers and post January 1st numbers. Yeah, he's a winner. That's what he does. That's a professional assassin, right? And that's what the Raptors are lacking, right? Like, I can tell you that the energy and burst on Scottie Barnes attempts, just the bounce in his step in a close game in the fourth quarter is
Yeah.
different. His playoff performances are different. I don't want to build a team around a guy who has the same level of energy against Charlotte in December as he does against Philly in the first round.
You can argue
Now,
he has more against Charlotte because he
yeah,
has
and
numbers.
some people don't get that. I feel like some people really don't understand that. But I feel like those people, like, I'm not trying to go at anybody because, I mean, I think I don't want to lose more than 35 subscribers in one day because that's pretty much what we lost today after those two low light videos, which is kind of funny to me. But it's crazy to me that people don't seem to understand that there are levels to this, that superstars are supposed to show up when you need them the most.
Yep.
Kenny the Jet Smith used to recount a story with Hakeem, and he says that Hakeem would basically sleepwalk through almost every single game during the season. He would put up his 20, 25, whatever. He wouldn't break a sweat. And then he used to tell these guys on his team, you guys, this is your night. Me, I show up for 5 matchups. I want to go up against Shaq. I want David Robinson. That's where he goes up.
Hmm.
Every time you talk to like role players, they don't seem to have this mentality, but stars do. They should. Tonight, Scottie Barnes, really tough game in terms of touch, efficiency. I don't like the middies. You do. I don't.
I
I'd
think
rather he
me,
just goes to the.
I'm
You just want the
to me,
reps.
it's reps, because we're going absolutely nowhere with this team. We're going nowhere. We're stuck. Like, I want to talk about. I messaged to you on Instagram a couple of days ago, but like, we used to be a, a franchise that developed. We used to, like, our recent draft picks or signings. They haven't been working. Like, no one's working. It's this Fred Siakam, come hell or high water treadmill has literally destroyed everything around them,
Mm,
right? It's like Flynn isn't developing. Banton, Doughton. I was watching the Will Lou podcast, and they were talking about the Raptors 905, and
Right.
Doughton was going up against Scoot, and Doughton was amazing. And his thought was, why is this guy in the G League? This guy's way too good to be in the G League.
He is.
Why isn't he on the main roster? He's not going to get minutes. He's not developing. Achua this season has regressed. OG is like regressing. Um, Barnes' development is an uphill battle, and then we have signings like Birch and uh, Utah, Svi, Champagne didn't work out, right? Aaron Brooks didn't work out. Dragic didn't work out. It's just anything we try doesn't work. But the problem is everything except the two guys.
Do you remember? Do you remember American
psychotic.
History X? Do you remember American History X? Do you remember that
Yes,
film?
the movie. Yes.
Yes. So I believe he was a preacher when he talks to Edward Norton's character, and he says this line that I'll never forget. He says, "Has anything you've done made your life better?" I think that was something that just echoed through my head
Mhm.
because I was a teenager. I was doing stupid shit, not American History X shit, but like, I mean, stupid shit. And I was just like, my God, is anything I'm doing making my life better? And I think that at some point you have to look at yourself, if you're Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, and say, okay, either we just don't know how to draft anymore. We just don't identify talent. Because,
And signings.
yeah,
And young,
because,
and young. Yep.
man, when you heard Masai Ujiri talk about Precious Achua, your mind, like you got a sense that he really, really was high on him. He was invisible tonight. He's been invisible for the better
Yep.
part of a month. His 3-point shooting is in the tank. His body language isn't great, right?
Nope.
Um,
Why would it be? This team's going nowhere, and he can't even get a run.
yeah,
At least
like,
guys in Houston are getting reps. He's like, why can't I get reps? Our team sucks too.
that's fair.
You know?
That's 100% fair. And it's just, you got to look at this team and say, okay, either we just completely lost our touch in terms of development, scouting, everything. We just don't understand, right? Because players are supposed to get better, like by leaps and bounds. I think, look, here's an olive branch to everyone who's really upset with the Pascal Siakam low light today. I will confess and I will admit that Scottie Barnes is not having a great season. I will admit
Yes, we can.
100% that Scottie has a lot of work to do. I will absolutely admit that he is not ready right now, as he is right now, to be the number one option on a team with any sort of playoff aspirations, and that he needs a considerable amount of work, development, reps, etc. I will admit all of that. If you guys can admit that Pascal Siakam ain't him, okay?
Not even
Now,
close.
like, my vision of this would be as follows. Let's say I entered this season with an expectation that Scottie Barnes is 100% capable of becoming that type of player, franchise cornerstone, first option, decision maker, etc., for your team. And Pascal Siakam's odds of ever reaching that are like 30%. Well, today I'm at like Pascal Siakam's odds of that are like 10% because this is another year that he can't do it consistently and we're losing.
We'll be 29 by the end of the year.
And maybe I'm like at 90% with Scottie. Instead of 100% or 98%, I'm at like 90%, where I'm like, okay, there are some actual limitations here, like serious limitations that could potentially prohibit him from becoming the type of 25, 28 point per game scorer that I was envisioning. But what is not ever going to be debatable for me is that he makes better decisions with a basketball late, early, etc. Like, he makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. He had that one, breakaway pass to Pascal Siakam where it hits, like massively off target. Uncharacteristic as hell.
Yeah.
But he's made some really dumb passes over the last, I want to say, 3 weeks. Like, uncharacteristically bad, lazy passes. I will admit that. But, like, I can tell you right now that there are times when Pascal Siakam has no clue what he's doing or where he is on the court, and he doesn't know until he looks up. Like, even the plays that work out sometimes are miracles in their design because somebody forgets that someone's slipping backdoor or something. They are just creations of chaos. And Scotty is not, it's not just creations of chaos. There is a measured, approach to it. I think his skill development has to take a massive step up. I
Yes.
think his body, he feels slow at times, a little heavy footed,
Yeah,
right? He gave up some clear blow bys to Paul George today. There was a blow by on, I think, Kawhi Leonard.
mhm,
I think he tries really hard,
I do
you
too.
know, but there are times where it's just the east west mobility, lateral quickness is not there for him. I think, if I could sum up everything with Scotty, it comes down to the knees. We've heard him talk about it, so I don't think I'm breaking anything by exposing this, but he's talked about tendonitis. I can't tell you where I heard the story, but I heard a story about Scotty overworking. I think it was Florida State or Montverde. I can't remember. And basically, the gist of it was from the coach that I talked to was basically we had to lock him out of the gym because he wouldn't give his body enough time to rest, right? So like you and I have talked about 2K, right? Before, right? We've
Mhm.
both played 2K. I remember when I used to develop prospects, I would ramp up there was a trade-off. So basically, you either ramp up in-season training like to the 100% very high, you give them no days off and then they have poorer seasons, or you give them rest days and you put the low intensity training. But over 3 years, the gap between the player that was like pushing it really hard in training, maybe the stats don't look like it, but within 3 years, those stats are like night and day. It's crazy how much more the player developed. So you take like a random 82 prospect that you draft and you put them on two different timelines, one where you give them more rest, one where you give them more reps. And by year three, it's like the gap between an 89 or a 90 all star and the other one's like at 84. I think that we have to be, I hate to say it, a little bit patient with Scotty, right?
Yeah, but also with this current roster construction, he
Hmm.
has to be more sealed because he has tighter windows to work with. He has to be more precise. If the roster was constructed to his strengths, he could play bully ball. He'd have more room to work with, right? So
Hmm.
it's like you got to be more precise. You got to be a surgeon, and you
Hmm.
got to convert on the few opportunities you get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He can't just get the ball whenever he wants and slowly rack up and pile up his stats. It's and for the person who said I don't like Scotty minutes at all. I agree with you. If we were playing for something,
Right.
we're playing for absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. All right. Mo, we got a pretty full queue
Yeah,
here.
and like
Any final thoughts?
this roster construction, man. It's like we're in the early 2000s, man. It's like the early 2000s. It's like Tracy McGrady and whatever the hell they put on around him in Orlando. Like these lineups of Boucher, Barnes, Thad, Precious.
Yeah,
It's just
that
like
is really bad these
and
days.
Gary, and it's
Like,
like, what are we gonna do in the half court with this?
yeah, yeah,
No East Camp,
yeah.
man. This summer, I don't want Masai and Bobby gone necessarily, but I'm with you, man.
Necessarily, I
No,
don't
no,
want them gone at all.
I don't want them gone. I don't want them gone. I'm not gonna cry a river like I would have 2 years ago.
MLSE hiring their replacements, I would cry. I
Oh
would
my goodness,
legitimately cry.
I agree with that. But
During a recession?
Nurse,
Mm,
Jesus,
yeah. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
no problem.
Cheers. Um, Con, dude, am I forgetting this? Were you the person that gave like a $250 super chat? Why are you so like? Have we pissed you off in some way? I don't remember. Or you're a different Con. I'm sure it's a pretty common name, but yeah, I mean, I don't think we're toxic against Pascal. Just think we're realistic about Pascal, but you're obviously entitled to your opinion. Um, all right. Next up, we got five people lined up in the queue. We got Lane, we got Mario, we got Alvarez, we got Vince, and we got Ishan. All right. Quickly, just looking at the stats, because we didn't get a chance to do that earlier. For the Raptors, I mean, they get 20 points from Pascal Siakam, 20 points from Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes, of course, doing his damage late. 21 field goal attempts, probably where you want to see it for Scottie. He was really assertive from the jump. He was assertive. Again, I think he took good shots for the most part. I just don't think he made them, but I can live with his shot diet tonight. Jakob Poeltl, 8 points, 11 rebounds, was just a pretty mid game for him. Fred VanVleet, I really don't have anything to say about Fred VanVleet. I think there were some bad decisions for sure, but 9 assists, 0 turnovers. I think he did a fairly competent job there. OG Anunoby really needed to see the ball more, man. I felt like he had it going, and I think it was on somebody to give up shots to get him more involved, whether that was Scotty or whether that was Pascal, neither of whom had like it cooking tonight. I think OG would have been, again, if the political structures that be would have allowed for him, for this to be the OG game, call it the OG game, I think the Raptors could have been a lot more efficient. But, ironically, on defense, wasn't really happy with what I saw from OG tonight. I understand Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are a hell of a matchup for anybody, but his defense feels like it's been slipping for a bit here. So not really sure. Thaddeus Young probably needs to have played his last game for the year, man. I mean, the minutes with him were just, they were so bad, right? Like they were so bad. He adds nothing. His, like, again, before you had Jakob, I understand it, a playmaking, small, big, but now there's no room on this team for another guy who doesn't shoot and another guy who's not twitchy. And it's completely redundant overlap. And I understand it. It's commitment to your vet. And maybe Nick Nurse feels like a sense of, you owe it to him. But this is like, he does not have 15 years of history here. This does not need to be a Udonis Haslem situation. Chris Boucher brought the energy. I really liked, what he was doing in general. Took good shots, made a couple threes. His 3-point shooting has been better of late. Precious Achiuwa with 12 minutes. I mean, am I delusional, or was it a couple of days ago or weeks ago where we were talking about Precious Achiuwa is legitimately going to start games for the Raptors? He's playing so freaking well. And now you just have this complete, like, he's just out of it. He's not in it, and I don't understand. I don't understand what's happened to him personally. It could just be a rough shooting stretch, but it's not. He just feels disengaged. Jason Williams, I legit seen Fred look off OG at least 3 times. Yeah, it happened a lot. And, when Vince comes on, he'll definitely talk about the specific example that he DM'd me. For the Clippers side, of course, you got Kawhi, you got PG. Good for Ty Lue, man. Good for Ty Lue. Bench Russell Westbrook. 23, you got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You cannot, and I repeat, you cannot squander your season to appease Russell Westbrook's ego. It's ridiculous. And look, I think Russell Westbrook has his qualities, good qualities as a player. I mean, he was plus 12 tonight, so it's not like the minutes with him were just so aggressively bad or anything. But man, I think they were better without him, personally. I think Terrence Mann was amazing just as a slasher. There was a lot of rumors that the Raptors wanted Terrence Mann back in a Fred VanVleet package. I would have loved it. I love Terrence Mann, man. I'm a really big fan of his. And yeah, Eric Gordon, great free agent pickup, and Plumlee, good free agent pickup for them as well. I think their bench just gave them so much more than the Raptors did, and I think that was a massive difference. I did not just conveniently forget about Gary Trent Jr. I think he played really well for the Raptors overall. I think he gave the bench like a spark at late. But sorry, I repeat, I apologize. He did not play really well in terms of like shooting, shoot well. But yeah, like overall, I like the shots that he took for the most part. I mean, shit, like some of the lineups he was with, they were just abysmal. Like he was out there with some really poor spacing. And I think his production has taken a massive dip. uh, in general. Like we've seen some really good Gary games off the bench, and the Raptors are definitely going to need those. But again, there's only one ball, and on any given night, there are 5, 6, 7 guys who want 20 shots. Um, it's. I've talked about quality of looks many times during these lives, and sometimes you'll see a guy just get wide open because a pick is set for him, and then you get another guy who's just having to do something with the ball with like 2 seconds left on the clock, and he's having to self-generate a fade away too, and those two players are not going to shoot the same percentage on those shots. I think Gary takes a lot of hard shots by design, but I think the Raptors offense could do a lot more to get him easier shots too. In terms of team stats, just to quickly go over this, the Raptors, I mean, wow, right? 15, offensive rebounds, a lot of them late by Scottie Barnes. They shoot lights out at the line, but they do not get to the line very often. Getting outshot at the line by 11s, they lose that. They shoot 40.6% from three. So to everyone who's always been harping on, 3-point shooting percentage, well, the Raptors shoot really well from three on higher volume. I mean, they did really well from three tonight, 40% on 32 attempts. That's incredible. I mean, I don't think you're going to get a better shooting night from the Raptors ever from three. But again, it's just all those mid-range shots, touch around the rim, etc. The Raptors end up shooting 38% from the field overall, which means they shot worse from two than three. That's incredible. Um, you do not see that often. I would be hard pressed to say I don't think I've seen that all year. The Clippers, of course, as has become a recurring theme for the Raptors and their defense, they give up over 50%, this time 55% for the Clippers field goal percentage. So despite taking way more shots, 25 more shots than their opposition, they still managed to lose the game somehow because they still, despite taking 25 more shots, made fewer field goals. I really like Fred VanVleet's not point of attack defense, not post defense, but some of that help defense and digging down, his hands, his heavy hands. We often talk about his heavy hands. I think he was just very disruptive in the first quarter in terms of setting, setting a tone for the team. So I think it was really positive. It was really positive to see that. All right, let's get to another caller. Lane, what up, man?
What's up? How you doing, man?
I'm all right.
This one was tough. I'd been going back and forth with a friend all day. He played college basketball, does active recruiting for CAA recruiting, which is like this whole like brand. So he knows ball. He's a Sixers fan, and the dude's been telling me since last season, and I think it's BS. I don't believe this at all. He's been telling me Scottie Barnes is Michael Carter Williams. He said we have the same false hope about Scottie that they had about Michael Carter Williams. And then
Right.
after today, he's like, "You're right. He's not Michael Carter Williams. He's Andre Bargnani." And I was like, "Dude, it's one game. I understand the frustration, but
Do you understand the frustration? Because I think it's like what you're saying sounds absolutely crazy to me.
I don't get too down on any player on the team. Obviously, I accept when people play bad, but I mean, you know me. I've always been even keel. I don't overreact too much to things. I mean, it's a Sixers fan at the end of the day. Yeah, I know he knows ball, but I think more than anything, he's just trying to get under some skin. But still, it's like the fact that people think that in the NBA world is kind of shocking to me.
I don't think anyone thinks that. I think it's pretty
You'd be
insane that you would come here and say that you think that because your friend who in my opinion sounds like an absolute idiot. And as a Sixers fan, as if that adds any credence to anything that anyone's saying. Okay, like I have a friend who thinks that Pascal Siakam's better than Michael Jordan. Does that mean that people in the NBA think Pascal Siakam's better than Michael Jordan? Dude, I mean, seriously, I've been reading your comments all day. So obviously, like I'm entering this conversation with a clear perspective on where you're coming from. You seem to think that Scottie Barnes is Andrea Bargnani or Michael Carter Williams. Is that the debate you're having with your friend? And you're friends with this person.
Yeah. I mean,
Birds of a feather flock together, would you say?
not really. Not when you've known the guy for forever. Basketball is, I mean, not that deep to us. I mean, it's not like a deal breaker or anything, but it's just like when you look around the NBA and then you watch like the
You're
ESPN.
talking about a rookie of the year who is, by all metrics, almost leading the league in fourth quarter efficiency and scoring. And you're comparing him to Michael Carter Williams and Andrea Bargnani.
I
This
know
is the debate you want to have.
it's not a debate I'm having with you. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think
Okay.
I
So,
don't I don't think he's that. I think
but do you think that there's actual, like, when I said that people in the NBA don't think this, you said you'd be surprised.
yeah,
No, I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised because I talk to a lot of NBA writers, and unless we're talking about Doug Smith, nobody really thinks that. There's a reason why people voted him Rookie of the Year over Evan fucking Mobley, who is amazing. It's because people do happen to think there's a reason why, when Kevin O'Connor releases, like everything the Raptors have to do from here on out has to be built around Scottie Barnes. I don't remember people talking like that about Andrea Bargnani or Michael Carter Williams. Michael Carter Williams was hyped to hell because he had one incredible rookie of the game to start out his rookie career, and that was pretty much the peak of his career. I mean, he had a pretty piss poor season. Is massively overrated. Look at his percentages that he shot that year. Look at his analytics that year. Massively overrated. Michael Carter Williams is the poster child for why stats, especially of the non-advanced variety, should not be taken seriously. Putting up big numbers on a team that lost. Scottie Barnes put up better numbers than Michael Carter Williams on a team that won nearly 50 games last year. How are we having this conversation? The concept of Scottie, Michael Carter Williams, this meme that has become the recurring theme, it's for people who don't understand basketball. In my honest opinion, it's for people who don't understand basketball. You understand the frustration with Scottie Barnes. I understand that people who are frustrated with Scottie Barnes right now seem to not understand anything about spacing and do not seem to understand that being 21 in this type of offense, this is one of the worst offenses in the NBA. Find me a player who's thriving in this offense. Who's thriving? Who is thriving here?
Jakob. I mean, like that's the legit answer. Is pretty much just Jakob, and
Okay.
tonight.
He's been here for 10 games. Like,
Yeah.
find me someone who's been here for more than 10 games who's thriving. Like, who's having a great season? Is Gary having a great season? Is Fred having a great season?
Statistics wise, Siakam, 1 of 4 players in the NBA that be average over 24, 7, and 6.
Again, you're talking about those
Technically-
idiotic stats that I don't take to put a lot of value in. Like, according to like these types of stats, like there are a lot of players in NBA history that could be boosted to hell. A guy like Ron Mercer is not better than a guy like Rasheed Wallace, even though Rasheed Wallace probably had a year where he averaged fewer points than Ron Mercer. These impact metrics do count for something. Pascal Siakam has been nowhere near a top 25. I think not nowhere near a top 20 player in the league, in my opinion, overall. He's had moments where he's been a top 10 player, top 15-ish player, actually. Let me not say top 10. But you think he's thriving? I mean, look at his true shooting percentage relative to other star players. Do you think he's really thriving? Do you think, given, the status in the league as a winner and, coming into the league as a two-time All-NBA guy, you think that the supporting cast that Luka Doncic had prior to the Kyrie Irving trade was better than what he has here? Luka was winning more,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it was stupid they gave up Dorian Finney-Smith. I take
No, I don't think that's stupid at all. But I'm just saying that there are a lot of stars out there who are doing a lot with very little. I don't think Siakam has anywhere near the impact that people want to think that he does.
I think you're stupid if you think he's a number one option. It's never gonna work. You're gonna be a lottery or play-in team with him as a number one option.
Okay.
Last year it was so great because Scottie was so great. Efficiency wise, I think Scottie's improved a lot this year. And this is my argument. I was never arguing he was Michael Carter Williams. I was never arguing he was Andre Bargnani. It's just the ignorance out there and the polarization from NBA.
But I don't really think it's
from one
out
guy.
there. You see, this is what I'm talking.
It
But
is.
it's
I promise.
not.
It's
But
maybe
it's
not.
not.
But
It's
I
not
promise
though.
you-
It's
promise you in
not.
the
This
States,
is what I'm
exactly
saying,
what they think.
dude. It's not.
It
It's
is. In the
not out
States.
there.
In the States, it exactly is. I promise
Oh
you.
my God. Okay, as an American, I tell you, this whole like boogeyman, it's in the States talk needs to shut up. Like, seriously. Like, this stuff of like, oh, this happened in my dorm room, so it's in the States is ridiculous. I talk to people in the States all the fucking time. They don't rate Siakam at all. Now,
Right.
do the 40 people that I know account for everyone in the United States? No, it doesn't, and neither does it account for you. But I will tell you that the overwhelming sentiment around Scotty is that he is a very good player among most people who know basketball. That
Who are-
he is. I
Yes.
mean, it's not as high as it is on this channel. That's for sure. It's not, oh, he's going to be a top 5 player in the NBA. That's not, something that a lot of people believe, and that's definitely going to sound like a hot take to anyone. That's an extreme outlier opinion. But the idea that, he's not someone worth building around, no. No.
Yeah.
The viewpoint on Scotty right now is around where it was on Shea probably in his second year, which is, that he's a really, really good player with a chance to be a really great player.
I would agree with that. I just think the issue is the casual fans. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the educated NBA fans. I'm talking about the casuals, right?
I don't care about casuals.
Neither do I, but you realize casuals make up probably 60-70% of the NBA fan base.
Probably more.
Look,
nor do I care.
yeah.
It's just what do they?
But it's just the polarization.
Casuals don't dictate anything. Number one, they're not this audience. Number one, you're not talking to casuals here. 200 people here. I doubt 60% of them are casuals. Number one. Number two, they don't make basketball decisions. Number three, they probably don't vote for like all NBA, all-star, MVP. So I don't really care what casual people have to say, to be honest with you. I mean, casual people voted for Donald Trump for president. That's casual. Casual people, I mean, my God, like the majority, like in terms of like what average people think about everything, it does not appeal to me. It does not occur to me. I don't fucking care about it. So if you want to talk about what 70% of people are talking about, and we're gonna talk about it, I don't want to do that.
Well, that's just the point. That's what I've been trying to get across, is just the polarization from both sides. The people that maybe know a little bit more, that are all on. I don't know. Like I said, I try to stay even keel about everyone on the team. I forever have never understood this Siakam hate. I understand he's not good in the clutch. I understand he's not a number one option. He will never be a number one option. But to say the dude's not a winner, to say the dude's it can't be the number two on a championship team when him and Kawhi are tied.
You're inventing an argument. This is called straw manning, right? You're like, it's like me saying like, and you saying filmmakers are idiots. Like, you never said that. I never said he can't be a number two on a championship team. I've never said that argument once. Who said that? Who said that to you?
That narrative more. I want to push that narrative more. I want to push the narrative that he's a number two.
But he's already been a number two. He's not trying to get paid like a number two. He's not taking shots like a number two.
Number two paid. Number twos get paid.
Number twos get paid on legit championship contenders. I'm sorry. Do you think that he has the offensive dynamicism of a Jaylen Brown or a Kyrie Irving? Because those are number twos. Do you know who's a number two option in this league? Paul George, Devin Booker. These are number two options in the NBA right now. And Dwayne Wade was a number two option. Scottie Pippen was a number two option. When we talk about, like, Anthony Davis is a number two fucking option. Do you know what the impact is of an Anthony Davis on the Lakers defense when he plays versus when he doesn't play? You should Google it. It's like a 20%. It's like a 20 team drop. So when I think about players in that second slot, and we're talking Lakers, Suns, we're not talking the top teams, right? I think that Siakam's style is best suited currently as a number one option on a bad team. To be a number two option, you need to be a much better off-ball player than he currently is. Now, he's shown flashes of it during the championship run, shown flashes of it this year when he plays off of Jakob. But for the most part, man, I don't think he shoots the ball well enough. I don't think he defends well enough to be when I say elite number two, I mean like top two, top three number two options, which means that if I take every single number two option in the league, let's say, for instance, I hypothetically transport Kawhi Leonard circa 2018-19 and plant his ass on this team, Siakam becomes a number two option, right? Is he the best number two option in the league?
Yes. By far.
By far?
I think
you think he's by far better than Devin Booker? You think he's by far better than...
I thought we were talking about top three. I thought we were talking about top three.
No.
Top three, number two option by far. My bad, because I think Devin Booker and Jaylen Brown are still better than him. If you put that Kawhi
You
Leonard,
think you think he's better offensively than Kyrie Irving?
I think he's better defensively and team wise than Kyrie Irving. Look at how the Mavericks have slid since Kyrie joined that team.
Okay. I'm specifically talking offense. I'm not talking two-way impact
Well,
because if I start talking two-way impact, then I think guys like Trey Young are dead in the water. Um, okay, so you think Jaylen Brown and
Devin
Devin Booker,
and I
and
think Devin Booker's
you think
fringe.
you really think when healthy, and again when healthy is a big caveat, that he's a better player than Anthony Davis? Legit.
Do I think when healthy, Anthony Davis is better? Current Anthony Davis? No way.
Okay, so when healthy,
When
Pascal
healthy,
Siakam is
but that's
not
like
a top three.
that's
What if everyone's healthy? Because look, man, we don't know. I mean, 2 years ago, this Anthony Davis health stuff, this wasn't a huge issue. It wasn't.
no.
I mean, it was in the back of people's minds that it could happen. Well, what if next year Pascal Siakam becomes injury prone? Well, now what conversation are we having? I'm talking, if the guy's healthy, he's not a top three number two option, and you got half the Raptors fan base split on whether he's a number one option. That's my point. Anyways, Lane,
I would agree.
always interesting debate. I don't think we agree on how good Pascal Siakam is, but I never debated that he could be a competent number two option on a championship team. I just think that his skill set right now is more geared towards him being more of a number one option.
I agree with that. I think he's being put in a spot that he doesn't deserve to be in.
Sure.
Quite truthfully, I think that if you replace Siakam and Jaylen Brown, they swap teams today. I think Jaylen Brown's a tad bit better than Siakam, but I don't think the Celtics fall off a cliff. If you swap Booker and Siakam today, I think the Suns get a little bit worse, but I don't think they fall off a cliff. I still think that they're probably one or two favorites to come out of the West.
Both
I mean,
those
that's
players
just
are
my
younger
argument.
than Pascal Siakam.
I'm sorry. What do you
Just
say? I'm sorry.
But both those players are younger than Pascal Siakam too.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
that
for sure.
I think that should be factored in, because oftentimes when people look at the players who are better than him and they're like, oh, he's going to be better than so and so and so and so, almost every single time those players are 4, 5, 6 years younger than him.
Well, it's like
All right. Yeah.
my fault. All right, good
Yeah.
night.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Next up, we got Alvarez. It says your device is not connected. We're going to move on quickly to Ishan and then Vince and then Mario. Ishan, what's up, man?
I'm good, Rob. How are you?
I'm good.
I was pretty happy with today's game. Obviously, not the result, but I was happy that Scottie Barnes took 21 shots. Obviously, wasn't an efficient night, but I mean, I'd rather lose a game with him taking 21 shots than him taking 11. So
Right.
I was happy with that. The last caller, that was interesting. I was listening in the entire time.
Yep.
I just want to say, like, meme culture has become such a thing now. Like, that's like, obviously you go on Twitter and you'll hear like garbage takes all the time. That's Twitter. That's half of Twitter.
Right.
There's no merit in Scottie Barnes being worse than Michael Carter Williams. If you believe that, then I don't know what to tell anyone. That's horrendous. Fast forwarding now potentially to the off season, I don't know where this team goes with Pascal Siakam. I want to trade Pascal Siakam, but looking at the landscape, Rob, I don't know if there's any suitors for him. Like, what do we do with that? What do we do with Pascal Siakam?
This
And if
will
you-
be the question of our lives. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to. We're gonna have to figure this out. Yeah, I mean,
like,
look, I don't know if they want to right now. I still think that they see some sort of future with Scotty, sort of slowly taking the reins, or maybe them kind of tag teaming it. I just think they kind of get in each other's way, man.
I was watching like the game today, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, watching the Rico Hines runs over the summer, and you see Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes in those runs, like consistent on the same team. Where is that chemistry? They seem horrible playing together. Like Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes actually, they can't. I don't know. Like they have not coexisted well and gelled at all. Like they just don't, and they were working on it in the off season, so it's not like they weren't. I don't. There's just no direction. The offense is so painful to watch. Like, I'm at a loss of words. Like, I'm stuttering. Like, I
Well,
don't even.
did you go into tonight expecting a win?
No, not at all. Like, I was like, this was like the best possible result. Seeing Scottie Barnes take 21 shots and losing.
Mm-hmm.
But the other risk is if we do trade Pascal Siakam, there's a good chance that Jakob Poeltl leaves because they're just such good buddies. So is that worth it? Then we're looking for a center again. Does that leave OG as the odd man out then? Like,
I'm more for OG than probably any person in this space. I advocate for this guy strongly. I hate the fact that, I don't know if this is like I don't follow like I do follow OG on IG. Uh, I don't know if this is true, so I don't want to be making a baseless accusation here. But someone said to me he removed the Raptors from his Instagram bio.
yeah.
He just seems kind of like, I mean, Rich Paul was in attendance today. I don't know if people caught that. LA game,
LA,
obviously clutch in the house. All right.
Fred
So Fred
VanVleet.
VanVleet, clutch sports, all this shit. So look, this should be an interesting offseason. I think the Raptors need to make a recommitment to OG. And honestly, to everyone out there who says, oh, he's so off balance, he can't do this, he can't do that, whatever. He can shoot. The guy can shoot, and I believe if a person can shoot and they can defend, they have a chance in the NBA to be, and to the last caller, I believe the last caller, Lane, he was talking about Pascal being an elite number two. I think OG could be a really good number two as well. I really do. Like maybe not quite, as a player, like as a number one, maybe he would struggle because
Mhm.
some of the creation stuff and ball handling and, offensive refinement and all that shit. But if you put him into a situation where, okay, you say, okay, OG, Scotty, like this is your team. I don't think you're going to lose more games than you've lost this season. I really don't. People have a hard time understanding that. I mean, you're at 10th, ninth in the East. How much lower do you think you're going to go? You think you're going to 11th, 12th? Like how much worse is it going to get, right? So I think at some point, and of course, like I don't know. I'm a big OG fan.
I
I
think
think
like OG, like his value around the league is probably higher than Pascal Siakam's. Like Pascal Siakam is a better individual player at the moment, but
sure.
trade wise, I think it's because he could just go on to any team, and you have an elite defender then, and you have a better spacer. Whereas like if you're a team trading for Pascal Siakam, you kind of have to cater to his strengths. So I just like I'm looking at the league. The only team that kind of realistically makes sense for Pascal Siakam is Portland. I don't know if there's another team where I'm looking around in the standings where I'm like, oh, Pascal Siakam can go on that team
Bro, he
and
would
he'll
be
make a better.
dominant in Portland. I think he would do really well with Dame. I think Dame, Simons, that creates so much spacing for him. Someone mentioned today, I believe, so, okay, like elephant in the room, we released two low light videos today. One on Fred VanVleet, one on Pascal Siakam. I wanted to get these out of the way. Every time we release them, we lose 20, 30 subs. I was like, shit, might as well get them out of the
Right.
way. Gotta do it. Gotta do it. I just gotta do it. It's not a sickness. It's not an illness. It is, however, the truth. Like Pascal Siakam, his fourth quarter, tight closing is disastrous. And I think, Fred VanVleet is a little bit manipulative for my taste and, very much about the numbers.
Damn,
Now,
wait, hold on. Fred
but
VanVleet doesn't hold back. Damn, you might have to watch his post presser after this.
why? What happened?
Apparently, he said something crazy in his post presser, so I don't know. Just got a notification. I have to check that out after as well. But
All right. I mean, sure. We'll watch it together live. That should be interesting. He said something crazy, eh?
yep.
Um, yeah. So anyway, like I mean, to sort of get to the point here, I think that this team probably is 2 games worse, 3 games worse if they had gone in the direction, and everything worked
And
horribly,
it's
right?
like OG was playing pretty well, like
He
in
was.
Pascal
He was.
Siakam's. Yeah.
It's like we forget where we were two weeks
He
ago,
was a
3 weeks
20-point
ago.
scorer when Siakam
Yes,
was
he
out of the
was.
lineup.
I mean,
So
look, here are two very legitimate narratives that existed this season. And people are shocked when I remind them, but I promise you it happened. Number one, Jason Tatum saying that OG Anunoby would be an all-star, and all of us
Right.
nodding along saying, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I'll see him.
I don't remember people saying, that's crazy. No, it was an outside shot, but people thought legitimately with his two-way impact that he deserved it. Right now, he is your fifth option. That's crazy to me. He's actually your sixth option because when Gary comes in, Gary takes more shots than him too. So he's your sixth option. Less than 7 weeks ago, we were talking about him being an all-star. Precious Achua is an afterthought right now. He's getting 12 minutes, 10 minutes. He's getting quick hooks. He's not playing well. This guy was legitimately like a de facto like impact player, potentially your fifth starter coming into the season. One of the biggest reasons that you were able to move off of of OG Anunoby potentially in a trade. He's just vanished. So you have these two massively impactful two-way guys that I think contribute to winning in a very major way, especially on the defensive end, but even on offense, crashing the glass, setting screens. They have just been completely taken out. We have, Scottie turning the corner in January. We're like, okay, like, God damn it, February, March, April, he's going to really turn around his season. He's finally turned a corner. He has plateaued, or he has collapsed and cratered a little bit. So, yeah, and I mean, Banton, Flynn, my God. I mean, the earlier caller, I think was Mo, was talking about just who the hell is developing. Man, true. I think we would all probably as a fan base feel a little bit better about this season if the young players were developing a little bit better. Christian Coloco, my God, a guy who is starting. We haven't seen him for weeks. So, yes, accommodating Jakob, who has played really well, I want to reiterate that, who has played really well, has had a cratering effect on a lot of other players around, which is completely cut into the minutes of Precious Achua, Christian Coloco. And if you want my honest opinion, the upside of those two guys is higher than the upside of Jakob Poeltl. Not only to mention, both those guys are under contract next year. Jakob is not. So you are allowing the guys who are extendable for contracts the most shine in favor, and you are basically fucking over the guys who are under contract. That to me is completely backwards. So in my opinion, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Anyway, man, thanks a lot for calling in. Always interesting to talk.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Have a good one.
Cheers. Alrighty, next up, Vince. What up, man?
What up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm all right. Your
So
camera's
the
off.
last. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh no. What?
You're one of the few people who turn your camera on and make it look like I'm not just talking to myself.
Can you not see me? I see
No.
myself on. I see myself on your screen.
Do you?
Yeah. Other caller or chat. Can you see me?
No.
Crazy.
That's
I don't
weird.
know. I can see I have you on my phone. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, weird. Okay. Apparently I can see you on YouTube, but I cannot see you here. Anyways, what up?
All right.
So don't like flash gestures because I can't see it. I just see a black screen. It's
Okay.
fucking weird.
No worries. Yeah, there. I'm doing the you can't see me gesture.
Oh no.
Yeah, John Cena. So the last caller that called is Lane. Is that what? Okay. So, I think my assessment of this whole Pascal thing and everybody else on the team is that everybody looks bad. That's just how it is. Everybody looks bad because the players around everyone don't complement everyone. So everyone just looks bad. I think in a vacuum, all players that exist on the team are good players. They just need to exist in a different system. And Pascal, I think, like there was a bit of a debate of can Pascal be a good second banana or second option on a winning team? And I think, like, obviously he was that for the Raptors, and the reason that existed was because he was the second best player who happened to be the best, the second best, I guess, score, like isolation scorer, kind of facilitator a little bit. Obviously, Lowry's a better overall facilitator, but he was the only person on the court at any given time that couldn't shoot. Right, so we had either Gasol or Serge as the big. They could both shoot threes. Then you had Kyle, you had Kawhi, you had Danny Green, you had Norm, you had who else am I missing? Who was in the rotation?
So one thing
And
I
and
will.
Fred. Those were the main core guys. Everybody around him could shoot threes, right? At the time. So I think if you were to drop Pascal onto Boston, right? Like instead of Jalen Brown, I think he'd be great, right? Because every other guy on that court can shoot, right? So like he can still create, he can still get to the bucket. He won't be garnering as much attention as he does on the Raptors, right? And so it's not like I can recognize that Pascal on this team. No, it's not happening, and they should definitely trade him. Like they should try to find as good a package for him as possible, and not OG, because OG is the guy that complements the young guys that you want to structure your offense with. So, excuse me, I still have a bit of a cough. Yeah, I think that's it. I think everybody's, in a way, everybody's right and everybody's wrong at the same time. It's just like everybody is set. Everyone is being set up to fail on this team, and like I'm not even like stressed out when I watch anymore, because we've seen it enough that we know what's going to happen when we watch the games. Like, it's going to be clunky offense. Anyone could have predicted the outcome of this game. The Raps are going to get they're going to really hustle on the offensive boards and get a lot more shots up and still probably lose. Yeah, that's what the one thing that they did that was surprising was they actually hit their threes at a decent rate, and yet the offense was still clunky as shit, because they
I
still
think he's
packed the paint
changed
like
a
mad.
lot as a player. So I think, first of all, we talk about Siakam circa 18, 19 a lot on this show.
Yeah.
I think people have referenced it a lot as evidence that he can still do it, right? That's like saying, 18, 19 is evidence that Kyle Lowry can still be the second best player on a championship team. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit crazier to say it with Lowry because he's clearly like older, but Siakam's older too. I don't think Siakam's the same player. I mean, he's not shooting nearly as well, and it's not because he's guarded any better. It's not because he's guarded better. Teams don't guard him from three. You notice that, right? He's open for a lot of his threes because teams will live with it. They want him shooting threes instead of driving.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I should have, as an addendum to what I just said, as him being a second option, him being a first option is the most detrimental possible thing to his game, right? And it just highlights his weaknesses so much more. And I think that the Raptors they're in such a tough spot right now because they can't, like, they need for Fred and Pascal's value to appreciate, right? But that can only happen if they win, right? But if they put them as the quote unquote drivers of the bus, they're not going to win, and so their value is going to depreciate. And at the same time, as Mo alluded to earlier, nobody seems to be developing while this is all happening. We just got to kind of cross our fingers and hope that, like, that Masai and Bobby probably see what's going on, and we have faith that they're going to do the right thing in the off season and try to find a trade for those guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know I've just said a lot of shit there.
No, I mean, it's a lot to think about. You had initially said that you wanted to address some of Khan's comments in the chat. Like, was that when you thought that Khan was the caller?
Yeah, I thought Khan was Lane. So it was Lane's comments that I wanted to address.
Yeah, like, I mean, if Lane is still listening, like, I think I read so many of the comments. I mean, people think sometimes because I don't respond to a comment that I don't see it on the Pascal Siakam lowlights, right? Most of them overwhelmingly were just repetitive, like, yes, he's shit in the fourth, and, he's so aggressively bad in the clutch. But, there were some comments that were just saying, like, oh, this is hating or whatever, and, if you surrounded him with shooters, X, Y, Z would happen. But the conversation of surrounding someone with someone should only really, in my opinion, be had for stars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dame Lillard is not a great defender. Trae Young is not a good defender, so you surround them with great defenders. Luka Doncic is not a good defender, so you surround him with great defenders. But we don't say DeMarcus Cousins is not a great defender, so surround him with great defenders. We say DeMarcus Cousins is not a great defender, therefore DeMarcus Cousins doesn't play in the NBA. It's a different conversation when you're not talking about those top end guys. And the amount of leeway that I'm willing to, have with a player who doesn't have superstar impact offensively, both defensively. I'm very critical of Scottie's defense, the couple of gaps that he had today, but Siakam's defense was not great today either, you know? So if he slips defensively from where he was, and people often say like, oh, he can't close and he can't defend because of look at all the energy that he's exerting, carrying the team with all of his, spin cycle moves. Okay, sure. But stars don't exert that much energy to put up 25 points. They just
Not
don't.
at all.
Right? No. That's the whole point of being a star.
Kawhi didn't even break a sweat to like.
That's the point.
He was.
That's the fucking point.
Shooting like 7 of 9 in the first half or something like that.
Exactly. Like, there was an argument today that somebody made where they said, Scottie has these brilliant fourth quarters because he's not trying in the first 3 quarters, and therefore he saves up all this energy for the fourth. And I know where this take comes from. I know exactly where this take comes from. It comes from that channel that we shall not mention. But it's such a stupid take. It's
Chubb Sound.
No, not that guy. The other guy. So I'm just like, my God, like what an idiotic thing to say that because somebody's not taking a shot, that they're not setting a screen, making a pass. Why is making a pass? Why like if I like for instance, to test it like sports science style, right? One player sets a pick, grabs an offensive rebound, sprints hard, offense, defense, right? Sets another pick and makes a pass. How much energy has that player converted or exerted relative to the player who stands, dribbles 3 times, and takes a fadeaway jump shot? Right? Like, my God, like these people don't play basketball. Like, setting a screen is probably harder on your body than taking a shot. If you want the straight dope or the straight truth of it, having to guard on the perimeter, Scottie's role on defense is so much harder than Pascal Siakam's role on defense. It's not even close. Like
Scottie
not
is
even.
Scottie is like he's equal. Like he may not be as effective a defender as OG, but he still does essentially the same things. So he's the most important or second most important wing defender on the team. And when I say wing, I mean guarding guards as well and bigs. Fuck, like they guard everybody. Right, so
they do, and they bang with the bigs. They take primary assignments on star wings. Like who was he guarding today? Kawhi, Paul George, right?
Everyone,
like
Zubac, like everybody.
Yeah,
he's fucking guarding everybody.
Exactly. And so when you give the other guy sort of the help rover assignment, the amount of energy exerted, the number of steps, the number of times he has to fight over a screen, you conserve your star. So that he has all that fucking energy in the fourth.
Yeah.
And then who shows up in the fourth with grabbing offensive rebounds and, has all this juice in his legs is the guy who's been fighting over screens and guarding Kawhi Leonard the whole fucking game. Okay. That to me is the truth of it. But the truth of it is not apparent to people who don't want to see the truth of it. And I actually thought about that a lot today. And I was like, I was watching, I tried to watch today as if I wasn't a Scottie fan. I tried to watch today as if I was a Pascal Siakam fan. I often do this where I try to debate the counter. I want to shit test. So today I was just like, okay, let me watch today as like someone who's aggressively, for Pascal being the guy and is an apologist for Siakam, thinks that Siakam needs more shooters around him, etc. And I'm just watching him try to create one-on-one. the low light video that I posted of him, flailing and failing in the fourth quarter, most of it is just him going one-on-one, or taking a positive one-on-one possession and turning it into a 4-on-1 by driving into 3 defenders.
I haven't seen it yet, but trust me, those plays are already ingrained into my mind.
I think seeing them in succession, like one after another, it can quite drive home the point. A lot of people wrote me some very nasty messages and emails after that. They were just like, but I think when I was trying to watch today, I was just like, he just doesn't create space, number one, and number two, he doesn't react to changing situations and variables fast enough. And I watched it, like, for instance, like there was a play right at the end of the game where Scottie goes up and he misses the shot, but he grabs his offensive rebound and within a split second finds OG open for 3, right?
100%.
That type of calculus, like the amount of, like, that's not something I think you can teach. Now, I'm not a basketball trainer. I have no idea. I've never tried to coach anyone to be an NBA player. I have no fucking idea. I'm talking out of my ass here, but I don't think that that's something I've just watched someone develop. I've seen guys who had it at 18, and that was LeBron James. I've seen guys who had it at 16, that was Luka Doncic. Like, I don't see that type of vision from other people. Scottie is like a very weird prospect to me because typically guys with this level of elite vision, gamesmanship, IQ, etc., they tend to have their skills and body and physical profile tend to have like skills that are just far beyond. This is like, if I told you Jarrell Martin was a basketball genius or something crazy like that, so it's a little bit of a strange thing. And I'm just reminded, sometimes I have to remind myself, where were we 18 months ago? Where were we 3 months ago? And just to try to map it on a graph, And so I have to remind myself that 18 to 19 months ago, we were give it 3 years with Scottie and he'll be a really good starter.
Yeah.
Now we're, throw the baby out with the bathwater. He's not a superstar in year 2.
Oh my God. No.
Have I contributed to this? Has he contributed to this? Who's really at fault here? People are very quick to say it's my fault because we were like, well, you're the one saying that he's, ready to replace Siakam right now. What people don't seem to understand is that my argument this summer was never that, build around Scottie and you'll be a 65 win team.
Right, sure.
That was never the point. No. My argument is that in those first 4 years in the NBA specifically, you need to give the reps for the player to expand their horizons. Yeah. And my biggest fear for Scottie, and this has always been the case and everyone around him knows that this is my biggest fear, is that if you are treated like a role player long enough, you will start to identify with that. You start to buy into, my job is to screen. You'll notice it. Like sometimes he'll be like really aggressive, couple times, boom, boom, take a shot, and then he won't take another shot if they both miss, and you'll see Fred say something to him or someone say something to him, he might not take another shot for like a quarter. And it's like that's the wrong mentality. We need to wipe that out of his brain and get him to the point where he can miss 5 shots and still take the 6th one with a lot of confidence that it is his right to take that shot. And tonight he took 21 shots. I think he could take 21 shots every single game. I don't think anyone is stopping him. And I think that has been my consistent message to him, and I hope he hears it. I know he's seen it, so I hope he keeps hearing it, and I'm going to keep saying it. He needs to take those shots, not because him taking 21 shots is going to lead to us being a winning team right now, but that eventually it is good for his development, and his development is what will lead us to a 60 win path. I do not see another pathway to that outcome. And as Raptor fans, I cannot imagine rooting for a team to become a second round out. I only want to root for championships. I'm spoiled by 2018, 2019. I want to get back to that. I think this team wants to get back to that if what I'm believing them saying, in their political press conferences is that, we're about championships. Well, if you're about championships, then I suggest you nurture the talent that can get you there. And if he's not that talent, then I have real issues with why you didn't trade him for Kevin Durant. Real issues. because Kevin Durant is
No.
that type of talent. So there's only one justification. So what is justified to me is, okay, we believe in this young player and he's going to be the one to take us to the promised land. Now go take us to the promised land. Go do it. Fail as much as you want. Take, go 6 for 21, 20, 30 times, whatever. You'll learn from it. You'll grow from it. That expanded role will help him take that step. It'll show the gaps to him. But what is not going to work is him doing what he did last season, which is setting screens and, playing this off-ball role, because that's how his growth will be stunted, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's just a matter of time with him. It's his sort of more fine basketball motor skills, like fine-tuned shooting, and and things like that. Excuse me. Need to catch up to his vision and elite size and strength, and it'll eventually gel and come together. But yeah, it's probably not going to happen in year 2. How many players historically, like fucking Jordan, didn't like I'm not comparing Scottie to Jordan, but it still took him 7 years to win a chip or something like that. And he was obviously more outstanding than Scottie in his first couple of years for sure, but Scottie isn't that type of he's more of the Magic Johnson mold than the Michael Jordan mold. It's just a matter of time. You have to give him the time that's needed, and people who say stuff like he didn't put in the work, it's all just bullshit. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Of course he's putting in work. It just takes time and reps. And I think the front office is eventually going to make the right moves to surround him.
It has been a common recurring narrative that he hasn't gotten better at anything on offense, and I just think that is such horseshit. And I say this not as a Scottie Barnes fan. I say this as someone who probably watches his games more carefully than anybody. His game is totally different. What he's doing is different. The numbers may look very similar. In some cases, the numbers are worse, right? Evolving as a player is difficult. People act like Paul George's 14 points are as difficult as Zubac's 14 points. Right. They are not. They're not the same type of points. They're not coming from the same places on the court. And there's a reason why Paul George is paid a max contract, right? Because
and Zubac is not.
And Zubac is not, and there are a lot of guys in this league who can put up 20 points, man. There's a quote from the Ringer pod, which was, there are 100 players in this league who can put up 20 points per game. And man, is that an understatement. There are probably 200 players, if properly featured, could put up 20 points per game on halfway reasonable efficiency. If you
Cam Thomas could average 20 points a game.
Shit, go down the entire Brooklyn Nets roster. You find 6 guys who could do it. Go down the Raptors roster. You find 7 guys who could do it. Neither of these teams right now are really good teams. On really good teams, really deep teams. I mean, if you wanted to build an offense around Russell Westbrook, he could probably put up 20 points per game right now. Paul George could do it. Reggie Jackson could do it. Shit, there are so many guys who could put up 20 points per game. It's not about 20 points per game anymore. We are we're just in an age of offensive explosion. It's not really that 20 point per game doesn't excite me. What excites me is, how does you scoring 20 points per game help your team? How does it help your team win? And how does it help your teammates get better, right? Kawhi, when he has the ball, the energy around him with the ball, it's just wide open. I've never seen Eric Gordon so open in my life. And he's a lights out shooter. The scouting report on him is guard that guy, right? Yeah. Driving lanes are just wide open for Terrence Mann. And Terrence Mann is not creating those wide open lanes. It is Kawhi, Paul George. These are stars. And there's a reason why teams will happily trade away 6 first-round picks, 3 role players, and emerging prospects for one of these guys. Because these guys, they impact everything so much. You replace Luka Doncic with Pascal Siakam. If you switch them right now, Raptors are probably on pace for 58 wins. Like, is such a gap. It's such a gap, right? Because, god damn it, like the talent on this team, relatively speaking, and people talk about, oh, well, he doesn't have shooters around him. What the fuck are Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, and Fred VanVleet? Those are really good shooters, man. Those are three really good shooters who are shooting poorly. Chris Boucher is a shooter, right? Scottie Barnes not a shooter. Okay, fine. Thaddeus Young not a shooter. Okay, I give you that. But like for the most part, you have shooters. You got Will Barton. You've had Yuta Watanabe, Sweet Mihailuk last year. Neither of those guys were doing well. So it's like at some point you suffocate the shit out of the offense, and then you say, look, everyone around me sucks.
Hold on, I will push back on one thing that you just said about shooters. We do have some quote unquote shooters on the team, but the type of shots that like Gary, like if we would love to be able to run Gary through Klay Thompson type actions, like young Klay Thompson type action, but that dude cannot shoot on the move. Like he has to be either dead stationed in the corner, or he's got to take one of his like little sidestep things. Like he doesn't. Sure. That guy can't shoot on the move. Same with Fred. Fred can do pull up threes, right? But he can't like come off of a screen the way say JJ Redick kind of did famously. Like JJ Redick did it better than anybody.
But like, how many JJ Redicks are in the league right now?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, those guys don't grow on trees, and the Raptors have like intense defensive requirements. I mean, they've kind of broken the mold with Will Barton and Gary Trent. Right. Ironically, neither of these guys necessarily fit into the quote unquote vision of super great defenders on the team.
Right.
So they've shown a willingness, at least in spurts. And I mean, they had Norm Powell. He wasn't a good defender at all. Right. But
he
in all honesty,
Paul George in Indiana.
I mean, like it's not like you can trade for Duncan Robinson right now and you wouldn't play him. Like you could have right. Duncan Robinson right now and not play him because he wouldn't be able to hang on defense because the defensive schemes are so fucking complicated because there's just so much gambling, right? I mean, at some point, it's hard for me to watch a team that is, so often taken 20 more shots than their opponent.
Right.
And lost.
Yeah, I think everybody and tell me if I'm wrong here. Would you I assume that you would rather see them just try to develop let's give minutes to Jeff Downton and
100%.
Sorry, who's the white guy they just signed? You had mentioned him earlier.
Who
has a 42-inch vert?
Wieskamp.
Like we want to see these guys on the court. Like if they lose, they lose. Who gives a shit? They're losing anyway. Like just put these guys on. So let's see what they can do. Give everybody 30 minutes a game, except for Scottie. Like play Scottie 35, 36, and make sure he gets his reps. And everybody else play fucking 28, 30 minutes a game. And let's see what you've got. The length era is obviously not working as currently constructed, right?
I mean, in a way, it is working, right? I mean, if you go in, you cannot accomplish, you have to set the goals. What is the thing I'm looking for here? It is. I apologize, it's a little bit late, so I'm struggling for the. There's a thing in science. Do you have a science background, perchance? No, you music.
I do not. Music. Well,
I don't have a science. I don't have a science background either. But it's basically you have to set a parameter for your test, right? And so or you set a goal. I'm not finding the correct word right now, so I'll just use the word goal. And so let's just say the Raptors are an experiment right now, and the goal is to create chaos on defense, and for that chaos to routinely result in the Raptors having 10 to 22 more shots than their opponent on a nightly basis. Well, if that was the goal of Vision 6-9, Vision 6-9 has worked phenomenally.
Sure.
And that was the whole premise of my Kevin Durant to Toronto video, right? If you remember that video essay that I put my heart and soul into, the Raptors are building around Kevin Durant, which is if you take out a guy who is inefficient like Siakam, and considering calling him inefficient in a team with Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. is a little bit silly. I understand that, but inefficient relative to Kevin Durant. and you were to replace him with a guy like KD or Kawhi or someone who's legitimately like that first option, or if Scotty
Right.
grew into that, then legitimately your 20, 10 to 15, 20 game advantage on the possessions margin would result in you being a 60-win team. Like, this scheme can work. It's just the problem is your offense is horseshit. So
I
you've
when yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, when well, I was gonna say when those rumors were happening and everybody was saying, "Oh, we got to trade OG, and we got to keep Pascal if Kevin Durant comes here," I was fucking shouting, "No, trade Pascal for KD, and it would be unbelievable. He would
I don't
have
think they would
his
have taken
table
it.
set."
I don't
No,
think they would have taken it.
I'm sure that was probably offered, right?
I wonder
I
how many
never
picks they were willing to move off of. I mean, and I mean, honestly, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and four
yeah.
first round picks got it done. Would Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent, and three first round picks have been a better offer? I don't know, but I'd be willing to do that 100% in
I
hindsight.
I I think I think they're if you look at that team, nobody can't shoot threes on that team. They can all shoot threes. Every single person from everyone on that team. Oh, sorry, except Nick Claxton is the only guy, right? But like every other player that they receive for Kyrie,
Hmm.
for KD, and like that's a good 3-point shooting team. What I'm super scared of is that I think we don't have any games against Brooklyn left,
We don't.
but like I feel like Brooklyn right now is nervous emoji, a better team than the Raptors have right now, and they have a shit ton of draft capital. I'm like I'm so nervous about that because they can shoot from everywhere. I think everybody seems to think that they're just going to like fall off some cliff and they're going to finish in the conference in 11th or whatever. I'm like, I think they're still going to like stick around. I don't
I
think
don't
they're going
think
to
they're
make
gonna.
any
I don't
noise in
think
the
they're gonna
playoffs.
finish 11th. I don't think they're gonna finish 11th, but I think they might be a play-in team, to be honest. Like, where are they right now? They're hanging on for dear life, right? They're at
I
6th.
think sixth.
Miami's clipping at their heels right now, right? So,
I wouldn't be surprised
and I mean the
if they
Nets have
held on
won
to
three
sixth.
straight. The Nets have won three straight, so I mean they're not like in disaster territory right now.
Right.
Um, the Raptors are now half a game ahead of the Washington Wizards. Um, so I mean they're half a game
I
ahead of the
just
Washington Wizards. There's like getting falling out of the play-in right now would be hard to do for the Raptors, right? Because the Bulls won one, but they're 4-6 over the last 10, and the Raptors are 6-4 over the last. Like, I mean, who's the hottest team in the East right now? It's the Knicks and
right.
the Bucks, pretty much.
Sixers, they're
I
doing good
mean,
too.
Boston has surrendered their top seed in the East right now, right? They are now number
Right.
2 in the East.
Hmm.
So the Celtics are 5-5 over the last 10. The Sixers are 7-3 over the last 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see New York potentially uh, catch up to Cleveland. Like, that's crazy to
Right.
say, but I mean, I don't want to give too much. But I've watched the Knicks play recently. They're playing really inspired basketball, playing
Yeah.
great.
They,
Um,
they look really good.
so
I'm just
yeah, so I
hoping.
mean,
Listen, I'm hoping that we can get into the bottom eight. If we can just pass Washington, Portland, Oklahoma
oh,
City,
how far the bar has fallen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
let's
shit,
just
and
let's
Utah.
to put this into perspective. Let me just share my screen for a second, or I'll just flash what is effectively my screen right now. Hang on one sec.
Tankathon.
No, the Tankathon
Okay.
dream is dead, unfortunately, in the water right now. So
No, I meant
I
Tankathon, the website.
yeah, but I only go to Tankathon when I dream of Wemby, and I'm not dreaming.
Oh
I'm not
yeah, yeah,
allowing
right, right.
myself to because
I'm
because
just
that
I just look at the number like the percentage numbers of like the bottom eight teams in the league. So right now
right
Detroit down through Chicago. I'm just like
right
get us in there somehow. Give me the 7.5% chance. Like
yeah.
that Jesus, that would
So, I
That
mean,
would
this
give
is
me
where
that'd
the
be a dream
Raptors
for
are.
sure.
If you look at your screen, this is where the Raptors are in the East, right? They're
Right,
ninth.
right,
And, 10th place, again, at 31 and 35 is the Washington Wizards. So, like how achievable is it to catch a team that is currently 9 games above 500 for that final playoff spot? Well, to be 9 games above 500 as a team that is 3 games below 500, you would just have to, the math is clear. You just have to go on a 12-game winning streak,
Yeah,
right?
sure. And they would have to
So,
go on a 12-game losing streak.
yeah. And yeah, and I mean, with the toughest schedule left, I mean, let me put it this way. The Raptors, by most, analytics nerds estimates, have the toughest schedule remaining. And they are currently barely scraping by and holding on to their tenuous position as ninth place in the East. If they had the
Right.
easiest schedule remaining, forget the worst. I'm saying if they had the easiest schedule. Right now they have the absolute hardest. Let's say we flip it. Let's say we flip the season, invert it, and say they are currently ninth place, 3 games under 500, and they have the easiest schedule remaining. I still don't think it's possible for them to catch the Nets unless the Nets fall
Right.
off. So if the Nets
Right.
remain 9 games above 500, the Nets will keep the 6th seed away from the Raptors. And the Knicks obviously are going in another direction. Cleveland and Milwaukee and Boston and those teams are just in complete. So, Fred VanVleet can, give these quotes in the media about, oh, we're aiming for 6th and whatever. But no, when you lose to the Washington Wizards, you lose. This is just.
It's the best. It's the best thing for the team. They gotta lose games right now. It's the best thing for the team. We need to
It
climb up
would be
that ladder.
so sad to enter the play-in tournament at 10th and lose in the opening round.
Oh man.
Wouldn't that be rock bottom? That has
It
to.
would
That
suck
has to.
so hard. It's in
Okay.
play. It's certainly in play. Who would they play right now? Who's in 7th right now?
They wouldn't play
Atlanta?
7th. The 10th doesn't
No,
play
isn't it?
7th. The 10th plays the 9th.
Oh, sorry, 10 plays 9 and for the right to play
The
whoever
okay.
beats
So
7 or whoever wins between
if the
7 and
play-in tournament were to happen right now, for anyone who's curious, the Miami Heat would face off against the Atlanta Hawks, and the Toronto Raptors would face off against Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and the Washington Wizards, and the haunting presence of Kyle Kuzma. And if the Raptors were to win that game, then they would go on to battle for the 8th seed and the right to face the Milwaukee Bucks against the loser of Miami Atlanta, which
Right.
means that in back-to-back games, you're the less talented team. And in both situations, I mean, right now you'd be at home for that first game against Washington. So provided you maintain the tiebreaker, I believe there's one more game against Washington remaining, if I'm not mistaken. But whoever has the tiebreaker, if they do end up with a tie, I mean, I think that could be oddly, it could swing. It could swing whether or not the Raptors get a second game in the play-in. But I think it would be very depressing to, potentially. I don't know. I think like what would make it worse? I guess what would make it worse is catching Miami being 7th and then losing 2 straight in the play-in. I guess that would be worse. I don't know
Right.
how. I'm very curious how play-in positioning impacts your draft lottery position. Like, for instance, if you were the 10th, does anyone know this? Actually, I'm very curious, and I've thought about this a couple times.
I'm
If you were 10th in the East and you ended up making the playoffs, do you lose your lottery pick?
No, I think you get 10th. I still think you finish 10th. I don't
Really?
think you shoot up to I don't think you shoot up to 7th. I think I think it's where you end in the season, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% on that, but
Chat,
for
let me
some
know.
reason
Does
I feel
anyone
like
know for sure how the play-in seeding and results of the play-in tournament impact draft status? I mean, it would be very easy to just go back to last year. Yeah. Okay. There you go. You lose it.
what is it?
Happened to the Pelicans, I think.
Oh
No, because you
shit.
moved to 8th.
Seriously?
Okay.
Okay, I was
So,
wrong.
interesting. So I guess that is interesting. So it's very possible to finish with 7th and still have a lottery pick. That's interesting.
Hold on,
See,
Sheldon Forbes here. We traded our pick for 2024, not for this coming draft. Sorry, Sheldon says why are we trying to lose games if we traded a pick?
okay, so yeah, Sheridan Forbes.
Sorry,
We traded
Sheridan. Yeah.
we traded the 2024 pick, not the 2023 pick. So yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I don't know. I mean, look, man, I almost wanna.
Just lose these fucking games, man. Like every single one of those teams ahead of us, or like ahead of us, below us, officially.
Yeah,
Okay, Washington, Portland, OKC, Utah, Chicago. All those teams, Indiana. All those teams are kind of like, quote unquote, better, more cohesive, have working part. Like I wouldn't love Toronto's odds in a series against any of those teams, except maybe OKC, maybe, but I think we'd still even lose to them.
hmm.
Like, we're not losing to Dame. We're not losing. I think. All right, so we're not beating Dame. I don't think we're beating Washington. I think
Wait a second.
Utah would.
How are we playing Dame?
No, no, I'm not saying. I'm just saying, like, if we were to play a series with any of these teams that are officially below us, like, what I'm saying is that the Raptors aren't better than the teams that are underneath them right now.
I think okay, so here's where I maintain sneaky optimism. Oh wow, the channel that is all pessimism is slightly sneaky optimistic. I have slight optimism, and maybe it is not actually optimism and rather just delusional Scotty fandom, but I believe in a one game do or die, if he's healthy, he will not let you lose. That's where I'm at with him.
Scotty.
I
Well,
don't think he's gonna let you lose. I don't
how
think he
about
would let.
this as a how about this as a low key stealth tank move? Like if Scotty actually has what's his minor injury right now? Is it his ankle, his knee? He's got some
It's
minor thing going on,
he's got so many, right? So
and a thumb.
he's got his thumb, he's got the wrist, he's got tendonitis. I think he has tendonitis. I don't want to confirm that, and I don't want to like necessarily be breaking that, and I don't want anyone to be, tweeting
Sure.
about this tomorrow, but yeah, I've watched Scotty for a really long time. I've watched play basketball for a really long time. There's like spring leg Scotty, and then there's heavy leg Scotty, and heavy leg Scotty seems to coincide. It happens once or twice every single year, where it seems like like he's wearing boots when he's playing basketball, right?
Right.
Like I used to play basketball in ankle weights. He looks like he's playing basketball in ankle weights sometimes, right? And I don't know if it's overwork. I mean, look, like it's kind of awkward to address this, but like a couple of months ago, I was telling Brian, I'm like, is he injured? Like I feel like it's the injuries and stuff, and I just get like, no, not really, no, that's not it, whatever. But then he comes out and he's like, yeah, I wasn't feeling my best earlier in the season. There was some health
Right.
stuff. There was tendonitis. There was
Right.
this. There was that. And I was like, motherfucker, knew it. Like I knew it. And the same thing
Right.
happened last year as well. He just plays through everything, and he
Right.
refuses to say I'm hurt or I'm this or I'm that. And he's a really hard worker, despite what Doug Smith or anyone might have you believe. He's a really hard worker. So all of this aggressive development work that he's putting in the gym, shooting, etc., etc. I said it earlier in the year. I think he's trying to do too much. But who the fuck am I to say, Scotty Barnes is doing too much? He's already done so much with his life. I trust that in the end it will work out, but on the way it might be bumpy. So
Uh,
I just think
it,
that if he knew this about himself and he knew that he needed to get right for the play-in, that he's probably going to have to target. Like there are certain games where I'm like, he really wants this one. I feel like tonight he really did want this one. It just didn't go
right.
his way.
Right.
So this is the first time where I have seen him try to take over and not quite be able to do it. You know,
Right.
where he dials up the intensity and the shot just doesn't fall. And I think that
Right.
happens. I've seen Kobe shoot 30% in a playoff game. You don't think Kobe
Sure.
wanted that game? Of course. Bad shooting nights happen. I think tonight could have gone one of two ways. Scotty Barnes scores 30 points, Raptors win, or Scottie Barnes goes, takes 21 shots, he misses a lot of shots, and they lose. And it went the second way. This would be my fear in a play-in situation, is that he still has so many limits on offense. He's not quite, he's like a Padawan. Like he's not quite like at that point where it's just automatic for him physically, even like he can't just overpower guys. But I feel like when he wants to get past someone, he can. Like when he's really, really like gunning for it, he can. And so I'll be very curious to see if the Raptors start to fall a little bit, start falling. Like if one of the teams, 11, 12, whatever, they start climbing up behind us, I'll be very interested to see if he dials up his intensity. Personally, I think, what are you waiting for? Just do it. But I have a feeling, just watching him just kind of go up and down the court, that he feels like really heavy footed, and like I think his knees are bothering him right now.
Just rest him. Rest him. If they rested him, they would they would definitely lose.
Honestly,
sure.
People talk about injuries. People talk about a center, right? Like Rue wrote this comment here. What happened to all we need is a center? I think that's a great comment, right? I think people talk about needing a center. People talk about injuries so often. I actually think that an injury, not that I'm wishing an injury on anybody, but I think that an injury would uncomplicate the offense right now. So maybe not an injury, but just resting a guy right now. Like if Fred just rested for a game, or Gary just rested for a game, or somebody, it just takes one guy out. And people might be like, what are you talking about? Like the offense is already laboring. You want to take out one of your better offensive players. And it's like, sometimes you need to. Too much of the same thing is a bad thing. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing is the actual quote, but I adjusted for basketball as like too much of the same thing is a bad thing. And the other thing I'll say is, it's really difficult to say what could be if you never see it, right? Like I have a vision that, and I could be wrong, that Joe Wieskamp could really help. I really believe that. Like I believe if you gave Joe Wieskamp, 10 games and just said, come hell or high water, we're riding with him for 10 games, 10 minutes a game, I think he could be a massive boost for that second unit. I think he provides spacing. I think he provides movement shooting, exactly the type of shots that you said Gary doesn't hit. Those are the types of shots he does hit. And I think he's smart. I think he defends. So you're not like playing a defensive liability necessarily. And I think if and he doesn't need shots. He only takes in rhythm shots. He's never going to take a shot out of rhythm. So I think you just simplify the offense by adding someone who gives you a different look. Someone who maybe can confuse the other team's scouting report because they don't really have a lot of intel with you and this guy. I don't know. I think just resting Siakam right now. Rest Siakam for 2 games and see if you're not better. You probably would be. Is that me saying the Raptors are better without Siakam? No, not really. I'm just saying that this mishmash of pieces, sometimes you have too much. You have too many things. Not to always tie this back to a chess analogy, but oftentimes when I'm playing a really good player, what I want to do in chess is I want to keep all of my pieces on the board. When I'm playing a really good player, the more pieces I have on the board, the better off I am. The more we start exchanging pieces and trading pieces and getting to the end game, the more I'm fucked. So that's kind of how I see it with basketball, is like if your offensive system is great and everything is smooth and you have a superstar, then by all means add everything. Because if you're if you added Clyde Drexler to the bench for the 96 Bulls, like they wouldn't fall off a cliff. Their leadership is so solid. That's just another tool that they have. But you could add Clyde Drexler, like who's a hell of a player, to a team that didn't have that type of stability and completely ruin it. I think remember that Lakers team with Karl Malone and Gary Payton?
Yep, didn't work.
Didn't work. Do you remember the Lakers, another Lakers team with Steve Nash and Dwight Howard? Didn't work, right? Do you remember the Houston team with Barkley and Olajuwon?
Yep.
Didn't work. Now, I'm not saying that any of these guys are Hakeem Olajuwon, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, etc. But what I am telling you is that in a vacuum, it sounds insane to say that Horace Grant is a better player than Karl Malone. In a vacuum, it sounds insane to say that Derek Fisher is a better player than Gary Payton.
Right.
But for that offense, they are.
Yep.
And they were.
Totally.
A guy like Patrick Beverley, in my opinion, if you just, like, let's just say we 2K swap this and we play out an entire season. Patrick Beverley, Fred VanVleet. Raptors with Patrick Beverley probably outperform the Raptors with Fred VanVleet. Now, that sounds probably like a hot take to some people, and they're saying, are you saying that means Fred VanVleet's a worse player? No, Fred VanVleet is definitely a better player than Patrick Beverley. But where it comes into is fit, role, offensive pecking order, etc. You know, the best I've ever seen Scottie play in my life, the first stretch of his rookie season without Siakam, some parts of the second half of last season, you know, there was a couple of game stretch against San Antonio and Atlanta this year without Fred. It's usually when something is removed.
Right.
Almost always. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when the Kawhi trade happened for DeRozan. I almost the reason I was so I fell off my chair exuberant when I saw it happen was because we got Danny Green as well. So I was thinking that Danny Green replacing DeRozan alone is kind of a net neutral just because he plays such good defense and he hits threes with such accuracy. And then we had Kawhi Leonard on top of that. So I was just like, this is going to be fucking fun as hell. And I didn't understand Raptors fans who hated the trade. I was like, are you guys crazy? And it's the same sort of thing. Is Danny Green better than DeMar? No, of course not. Right. But for the team that he was slotted into, he was perfect.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And look, even though Danny Green may help winning more than DeMar DeRozan, his trade value would never approach anything close to DeMar DeRozan's.
Right.
Why is that? Is it an imperfect understanding of basketball? No, because DeMar DeRozan's a better player.
Right.
Under most circumstances. But if I put DeMar DeRozan right now on the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James, and prior to, they're moving off of Russell Westbrook, imagine putting DeMar and Westbrook in the same backcourt. Oh my God.
No
right?
Bueno.
No bueno indeed. Holy shit, that would be bad, right?
Yeah.
You, at some point, again, I refer it back. I hate to repeat myself, but I'm repeating myself. That scout that I spoke to about why the Spurs moved off of Rasha Nesterovic because of the fit with Tim Duncan in terms of spacing, that was the first time at that point that the term spacing had even entered my field of vision. I never really thought about it. I mean, obviously, the triangle is predicated on spacing, movement, etc. There's a lot of offenses that are based on spacing. But it was the first time that I really started to think about spacing because, to me, Rasha Nesterovic was an awesome player. Really good player. Really capable, serviceable starting center. And I didn't understand why the Spurs wouldn't want to replace David Robinson with him. And it was just because Tim Duncan was going through an evolution in his career in which he needed a stretch big to be with him. And so they prefer Matt Bonner or someone like that, And eventually they ended up pairing him with Matt Bonner. I think at one point they tried pairing him with that guy who had no kneecaps or something. What the fuck was his name? Was it DeJuan Blair?
DeJuan Blair, that's it, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean...
The dancing bear.
Yeah. They had this entire concept of how they wanted to structure that offense in terms of space. I think that the Raptors have pieces here that can work. I think they have one too many pieces. I think they have the wrong pieces. I think if you replace Siakam with a guy who takes a lot of threes, it changes everything. If you
I would have loved Mikal Bridges.
Sure, him exactly. And am I saying that the Mikal Bridges is a better player than Pascal Siakam? Fuck no, he's not. But he's better for this team. So it's, you have, to me, everything can be boiled down to Scottie Siakam. You have one too many of these guys now. Right? You have two guys who occupy a lot of the same places on the court, and instead of making that somewhat better, you've actually made it somehow worse by adding Jakob Poeltl to the mix. And now you make it even worse because you insist on starting all three of them together. I get it. It's almost like it's a science experiment run amok. because you want to see if you can spam the offensive glass so much that you can win this
Right.
possession battle. And having three huge guys in the front court is going to do that for you. But for the same reason that Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns doesn't fucking work, you know, it's the same thing. Because Karl Anthony Towns, one of his biggest attributes last year and why he was so successful was because he could pull fives out.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
when he wanted to, he could still go in the post and be a hell of a problem. But now there's no fucking space to go in the post, and he's not pulling fives out anymore because the five's hanging back, adding a second defender. And so, in a weird way, the Raptors watched what the Minnesota Timberwolves did, giving away all these draft picks for, Rudy Gobert, and they were just like, let's do some small version of that ourselves.
They missed the boat.
I think
They
they
missed
did.
the boat.
Yeah.
Minnesota, Danny Ainge essentially wrote the book for everybody to read on how to take advantage of a new ownership group and how to leverage your position in the league. They did everything right, and I'm pretty sure that the rest of the NBA is scared shitless now to make
Yeah.
that same wrong move. So we're not getting. I don't even think like OG is like the supercharged version of Danny Green. He's like the all-star equivalent of what Danny Green is. And he wouldn't even get the kind of pick package that they're looking for. I don't think Siakam is going to get it unless there's some like team absolutely desperate next year. But everybody sees what happened to Chicago when they mortgaged their future for their center there.
Yeah.
What's his name? God damn it, Nick Vucevic. And then it happened with Minnesota. I guess the Cavs experiment is going a little bit better because they had
Jared Allen's different.
Yeah,
And they didn't
Jared
trade a
Allen,
lot for him. They got him
Evan
for 10
Mobley.
cents on the dollar.
True. Yeah, like they gave up a lot of picks, but I don't like who did they give up? Oh wow, they gave up Markkanen, so they got somebody good for him for sure.
For him? For Donovan Mitchell?
For Donovan Mitchell, yeah. Like the Cavs, they traded. I think it was 4 picks plus Markkanen.
You know what's probably a hot take, but is probably true as well. If you replace Pascal Siakam with Lauri Markkanen right now, you're a much better team.
Oh, 1,000%.
And that's crazy.
Markkanen is that guy's a laser from 3. That dude is a bucket. Like,
yeah. But that's the whole point. It's like when you think about an offense with Lauri Markkanen as opposed to Pascal Siakam, right? You just replace like one guy and the other. Well, number one, like immediately your spacing issues completely resolve themselves because you have to guard this guy out to 25 feet. Number two, there's a lot of basketball IQ issues that resolve themselves too because he finds himself in the right space a lot. I'm very impressed watching Lauri play. Like I watched a lot of Jazz games early in the season.
He's smart.
Yeah.
Can you give a shout out to Mel's second last comment? Pascal, not the main ingredient. He's the special sauce. I thought that was witty.
He the special sauce.
Special sauce. Anyway, sorry, I'm being stupid.
I don't know. All right. There's still a couple of callers left, but it was really nice to have you on. As
of
always,
course, man.
I was telling Sean, if you're listening, if you're still listening, I was telling Sean earlier. There's so many people in this world that are so different when you meet them in different arenas. Like you communicate with them, they're different. You talk to them, different. You meet up with them, they're different. And I was telling him like one of the things I really appreciate about Vince was he's pretty much the same. I think that's it's a really cool quality. So just saying,
thanks, bro.
I appreciate that.
All right, man. Yeah, it's good knowing you, and yeah, it's good to have this space. Everybody, calm down. These games don't matter. It's all good. It's all gonna come out in the wash. Don't worry.
Oh my God, this reminds me of Brian saying like, everybody relax,
relax. We're in a couple years, we're gonna see Scottie it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, we will think back to these times and wonder how the hell we were having the discussions we were having at this point. I'm trying to be a little bit more balanced right now because I'm not trying to get like completely caught up in the hoopla of it. But you know, there's a part of me that's like, have I watched franchises bury ascending stars, trade away ascending stars to appease existing false stars before? Yes, I have. I have
Right,
watched it
right.
happen. And so that fear factor is there. I'm going to have to trust Messiah a little bit more and Bobby that they would not screw this up, obviously. There's the
Right.
added wrinkle or layer of, you know, the NBA, which is that it's a business and that, you know, nothing's guaranteed here. Nothing is for
I know.
sure. And you don't know if, you know, a certain ascending star decides he's just had enough at some point and just demands out. Like, you don't know that.
Right.
Like, and it's happening sooner and sooner. And eventually we're going to have a guy. I mean, there were talks about does Zion want out? That was year two,
Right.
you
Sure.
know? So,
It.
like, you can at some point, you know, exhaust the guy to the point where he's just either decides right now he's out or he puts a mental note he's out and he's out when his,
Right.
you know, super max extension comes up in 3 4 years. So
Sure.
yeah, I think there's a vision here. I'm completely open to the idea today that it may not 100% come true, but
Yeah.
I see the pathway for it. Even in his worst moments, I see the pathway for Scotty becoming a superstar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's just got to tamp their expectations down. It's especially concerning to see like media members start to like, oh, he didn't improve like by 50% this year. Like what? Like it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't. You know, it just if he puts if he what he put what were his stats last year? 17,
No, it's 15. It was
15, 7
15.
and 5, something like that.
No. That's ironically that's a lot of people think it's 15 7 and 5. It was closer to 15 7 and 3. Um
Okay.
but yeah, like
Whatever it was, they were
if you give
expecting
him
him to
more
like.
if you give him more playmaking opportunities on a worse team last year, I guarantee you he's 27 and 7 easy. Right? People that's
Sure.
why I hate these stats because he just wouldn't be as
Right.
efficient, right?
Right. Right. Right.
This year the problem is he's playing with all these supposedly great players, but it's like, okay, if you weren't a Raptor fan and you weren't watching the Raptors every single night, like, would you really think that he's playing with all these really great players?
No.
I don't think so. Like, you know what I mean? You would
At
probably
any.
view this the same way that we view Charlotte or Detroit or San Antonio or any one of these situations and just say maybe they're a little bit better. Or maybe the most apt comparison would be Washington or Chicago, which is probably closer to fair, right?
Sure.
You probably look at it like you'd probably look at Siakam like DeMar DeRozan as opposed to looking at him like, I don't know, prime Barkley or prime Pippen or something.
Right.
And you probably look at guys like Fred VanVleet the way that most people look at Alex Caruso, or someone in that ilk, right? You might look at someone like Jakob Poeltl, like Nikola Vucevic. You already mentioned him.
Right.
And you might say, like, okay, like, do we think Patrick Williams is playing with so much talent in Chicago? No,
Sure.
no, we
Sure.
don't. But I'm sure there's a Chicago Bulls fan out there who thinks Patrick Williams plays with a lot of talent. And that's kind
Right.
of the point. Anyway, Vince, always nice to have you on. It's pretty late, but I hope you feel better. Yep.
Yeah. Soon this thing will go. We'll
Yeah.
be okay.
Yeah. I'm not feeling that great myself. Like I felt like something really hard in my throat today, so I was like, please don't be sick. I
Oh
hope
yeah.
not. Yeah.
Well, it's almost 3 a.m., so you got to get to bed soon.
Yep. All right. Cheers, man.
Take care,
Peace.
bro.
See ya. Bye. Alvarez, it still says your device is not connected, so please do connect it. Mario, what's up, man?
Well, I'm relaxed. I liked the game. It was a day full of a lot of interesting perspective. I watched ESPN today,
Okay.
and Mark Jackson and Mike Breen, if you know those two, um,
Yeah.
they see Scotty as sky's the limit. Just tons of praise for him and OG defensively, saying having multiple guys who can cover all five is just ridiculous. According to them, we're dangerous and problematic for teams above us. We're 8-3 in February, according to them, and they think that our bad year is a combination of the early injuries and the reality that Fred and Pascal were making clutch shots last year and are missing them this year.
I don't think. I mean, I can't speak for Fred, but I don't think Pascal was clutch last year or the year before. People have to go all the way back to 2018, 2019 to find a season where he was good in the clutch.
Yeah,
and that's when he wasn't assigned with any of the creation responsibilities that he is now.
Yeah, I don't know the truth of it. That's just what I heard. It was all interesting stuff for me.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see like what the narrative is versus what my experience is watching this team versus what the numbers say, right? Like the narrative among some Raptor fans is like OG is either being held back or OG is completely overrated and he's horrible and he can't balance himself. It's very polar extreme. It's either Siakam is like a solid, first option worth building around, or Siakam is dead weight and, the team would literally be better without him. It seems like a lot of polar opposite opinions. I think the honest, and far be it for me to say what is definitively true, but I think that the truth is that this is just a really bad mishmash of talent that doesn't fit together.
Yep.
It is possible to pair caviar with Pizza Hut pizza and peanut butter. And, just it's possible to pair three amazing things that you love eating, eat them together and say, this is absolutely crap, right? It's possible to pair the wrong meat with the wrong wine and say both of these are worse. The Raptors absolutely have, and it's difficult to say who's at fault for that. Is it players who didn't buy into certain roles? Is it Fred VanVleet who just cannot accept his off-ball role? Because look, we see it sometimes where he'll start out the game very on ball, very dominant. And then in the second half, we'll see him completely move off ball. I don't know if this is planned by Nick Nurse or if this is an adjustment at halftime. There's absolutely no way that your best shooter in the starting lineup or your second best shooter or one of your only real two shooters in the starting lineup can be with the ball. It just cannot work. And yet at the same time, in theory, that's also what makes the pick and roll with him and Jakob so effective, is because one of them can shoot. Because Jakob can't. So Jakob creates so many of the complexities that this team is currently facing, in my opinion. And it's not because he's not a great player. He's a very good player. Definitely an above average starting center and a hell of an asset. Problem is, just doesn't fit. It's the same thing with Fred VanVleet. It's like his lack of finishing at the rim, like that would create so much space if he could do it. But then his shooting is creating space. It's just such a... It's like designing a season from hell because none of your pieces match together. They're not compatible. Like I was a big fan of Lego. This is like trying to pair Lego and Mega Bloks. It just doesn't work. That's kind of where I'm at with this team. So I don't think it's because so-and-so didn't take a step up or Scottie didn't take a step up or OG has balance issues or Siakam sucks or Fred VanVleet's regressed or Gary's not, happy coming off the bench. Or I just think it's just a bunch of players who just keep getting in each other's way.
Absolutely. And for me, I think I've said this to you. I think we're looking at two of the four guys, meaning Pascal, OG, Fred, and Gary, are leaving before the beginning of next year. And maybe it's only one of the four. I don't know what, really is going to happen. But I really think that after the trade deadline now, the focus of the team is to promote the value of the guys we're about to trade and keep that as high as possible and get the biggest bag we can. And maybe it's a number 4 draft pick or maybe it's a Bradley Beal. I have no idea what's going to happen. Right.
Right.
But I see us positioned to try and make the move into what you're talking about, into a group that makes sense together. And actually, I don't think we're running a real offense right now. And if I was Masai and I was a chess player, then if I had a really interesting offense I wanted to try, but I knew I had to trade two of my guys at the same time, I might hold it back a year until I got rid of the guys who aren't going to be part of it, because I don't want them to know all my secrets. So I just don't, for me, I look at it on a much longer window.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like we're in a great spot rebuilding. And I'm really curious to see what the trades and what the not trade deadline, but the draft and the free agency stuff brings.
Mm. It's interesting. You said we're in a great spot to rebuild. I don't think we are, because I think we've given, we can't be bad next year because we've given up our pick. So in that sense, unless you're planning to bottom out, which I honestly don't think you can bottom out with the players on this team.
No.
So at best case next year, you're going to surrender the 20th pick. That's best case, I think. Worst case, you're going to surrender the 7th pick. So you're surrendering a pick between 7 and 20 and potentially rebuilding. That seems like hard to stomach for me.
But
especially when the payoff is the right to extend Jakob Poeltl to $20 million a year. That's the first part. The second part is, you'd mentioned in previous chat that you play chess.
Yeah.
And that you were very good and you played in tournaments. I think that the more you get into chess, the more you start seeing things that didn't even seem relevant before. For instance, are your pawns on dark squares, white squares? And relative to your bishop, relative to the other person's bishop, these calculations have to be made, right? The thing that I said earlier, I'm curious if you agree with it, that if you were playing against a better player, you would be against exchanging too many pieces.
I understand what you're saying. When the board's crowded, it's more difficult for me to be really aggressive on offense. And when I clean it up a little bit, and my height of chess was, I forget his name now, but 25 years ago, I was playing a guy who was ranked top 50 in Canada, according to him. I don't know that I ever checked that out. He was really good. We played about 50 times, and I won once, and I tied him 2 or 3 times.
Drew, okay.
Drew, yeah. And he loved to play me because he said, on offense, I'm always dangerous, right? And that tested him. For me, as more of an offensive chess player than a defensive chess player, yeah, I need space. I hate all sorts of little pawns cluttering up the middle. Makes it really much more difficult.
Interesting. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm totally open to testing this theory out against, better players in the, 2000s or whatever. But yeah, I had this theory that if you have more things to manage, there's more of a chance that something could slip by. But if I simplify the board for a Magnus Carlsen, right, or Hikaru, it becomes very obvious, because the whole thing with chess, and what this player who was really good was talking about, that players who are ruthlessly aggressive and or maybe will sacrifice a queen or a bishop or something in the opening in order to get a better advantage, they can actually sneak up and beat a really much better player, because they'll put that player in a situation that player maybe has never seen or never studied. And therefore, and the fewer pieces you have on the board, the less likely the outcome that you actually put the player in a position they've never been in before. So it's a bit of a catch-22 if you think about it from that perspective.
I hear that watching other guys broadcast all the time. We take people out of their offense. They're not, whatever they're doing, it's not what they usually do. It's not what they want to do. It's not what they're comfortable doing. It's not whether we win or lose right now. We're breaking everybody's offense. And that to me is exciting. And I know we're not ready yet, but I don't think we have to start rebuilding. I think we have. I think we put our money on Scottie. We put our money on Precious. And to a certain degree, we put our money on Koloko. And And those three, if they can all shoot from outside in 3 years with 3 years worth of strength development and shot development and smarts, and oh my goodness, that's going to be an amazing basis for a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so the other thing I want to tell you about the ESPN, and you and I talked about this just at the end of the last game, but I didn't see it because Denver didn't talk about it at all. So it's blown up. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the whole Scottie and Scott thing is quite big news. And
Yes.
I ran a poll on it today on Real GM,
Mm-hmm.
and they mentioned it on ESPN, and they mic'd up Scottie. And you never know what you're hearing because he knows he's mic'd, and like how much is performance and how much is what they really sound like when there's no mic there. But
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, he's way farther more advanced in as a defensive thinker than I realized. Like,
They mic'd him today?
yeah, today.
So that's actually really interesting, and I'm so happy you brought it up because I totally missed that I was gonna bring that up. I was watching him on defense today. The number of times that he told one of his teammates where to be, and he was right. Almost every time he was right. He was pulling. So the specific example that I was remembering was when it was like Siakam was too high on a screen coverage, and he brought him lower, and then they did the switch, and it worked out perfectly. And you could actually see, especially if you slowed it down, exactly where Siakam would have been had he not corrected it. He did the same thing with Boucher a couple of times, once with Precious. It's really interesting to watch him quarterbacking the defense. I'm really glad you brought that up, and I'm very glad ESPN mic'd him.
And so the one thing that they showed us with him mic'd is he went and he put his arm around Thad and said, "It's not your fault, bud. It's not your fault. We need to be there. We need to rotate in behind you." And so he's coaching a guy who's been in the league 15 years. I mean, it's amazing to me because he's encouraging him not to give in. And I agree with Mark Jackson, and this is the way I see the defense. And I know you and I have not talked about this and probably don't see it the same way. But if you're going to be up within a foot of a guy on the perimeter and really get in his junk, he's going to blow by you every now and then. You're not going to stop that. And
Totally.
When Fred was out, I saw the defense that I think we need to do, which is multiple challenges. And so you blow by the first guy, and there's help defense there. And that's what Mark Jackson was saying today. Where's the help? Where's the help? And he said it about 3 or 4 times because we get by, and then there's a dunk. But that's Pascal, and he's late all the time.
Yes, he is. And honestly, I made a, low light video of his fourth quarter failings. And if I started to make low light videos of his defense, I'm pretty sure we would lose 1,000 subscribers because that video would go on for what feels like 3.5 hours. Like, it's so bad. And he's late constantly. And he has this, like, I don't know how the analytics don't pick it up, like how bad he is on defense, because there's so much, that analytics cover on Bucks plus minus in terms of defensive plus minus. And, it's very difficult to analytically match how much you were helped on a defensive possession. Like, for instance, if every single time your scheme resulted in Fred VanVleet getting back down on the post by a guy who was a foot taller than him, and every single time Scottie Barnes came over from like 20 feet away and miraculously blocked the shot, well, Fred VanVleet is actually, weirdly enough, per plus minus stats, credited for that block too, because it happened while he was on the court. And so you can design a scheme to elevate somebody beyond their weaknesses, right? Like, you could design a scheme to say Jakob Poeltl is elevating your offense to godlike levels because, you create sets that get him that are tailored to his strengths. You could also make it look like Jakob Poeltl is the worst player in the world by having him take threes. See what I mean? Like, you could literally park Jakob Poeltl out at 25 feet and say, take shots from 25 feet, or don't take shots, just stand there and make him totally useless, right?
But he won't do that. that. He's constantly moving to the first guy beside the best shooter and
Yes.
screening.
But
And
that's but what I'm saying is in a vacuum, like it's possible to completely manipulate stats based on how you use certain players. And it's the same thing with defense, right? Like if you were to give Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam's role on defense and switch their roles, or if you were to give OG's assignment to Siakam and Siakam's assignment to OG, obviously they wouldn't do this. But I'm saying like if you were to just switch their roles every now and again, because Nick Nurse, he's a big experimenter. He used to talk a lot. I remember him talking about how he switches assignments for his assistant coaches sometimes just to keep them fresh. Well, switch assignments on your team. Give Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet's responsibilities on offense, or give Pascal Siakam OG's assignments on defense, or put Jakob Pertl where you put Scottie Barnes tonight, and put Scottie where you put Jakob, and see how different your offense would be. And that's kind of my point. It's like no matter how you match these pieces around and move them around the chessboard, they don't fit. It's like having four knights. It would just be the weirdest game of chess in the history of the world, right? It's just hopping around.
we don't have an offense. Like I told you from Cleveland.
I think we do.
Well, drop your shoulder into somebody and try and move them. That's what we do more than anything else.
I think that's what it devolves into. There is an offense. I mean, when you watch other teams play, like it's maybe not as advanced as some of the better teams, but at the end of the day, like if you replace Kevin Huerter with OG Anunoby, what they're doing in Sacramento doesn't work that well either. If you replace Siakam with Domantas Sabonis, if you take away De'Aaron Fox's clutch stats, and you know what I mean, like it's very possible to have an offense that's halfway decent. Now, I'm not saying our offense is halfway decent, but I'm saying it does exist. It exists. There is movement. There are plays that are run once every 2 games. Yes, like for sure. Like, eventually it will, devolve into a Pascal Siakam 2-dribble ISO post spin, whatever. But I mean, look at the Clippers offense tonight. How many times did Paul George and Kawhi Leonard do that? I mean, they did that quite a bit. They create more space and they're better players.
Well, Mike Green would say great defense leads to easy offense. They said that about 10 times as we're on the break and laying it in, and that's what we're good at. And we're not good at, like, to me, I know you want to talk about the offense, but I think our identity is defensive and we're excellent defensively. And I'm really fascinated by what we're doing defensively, because in the same way on offense, you talk about being 5 out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a defense, and I've heard, and again, I'm not fast enough and I don't have enough of an eye to see it while it's happening, and I don't watch film, so I'm limited. But I heard a commentator say that's not fair. They've changed the defense twice now during one play. So we went from box and 1 to a 2-1-2 zone and then back to box and 1 based on who had the ball. And he said, I've never seen a team in basketball that will change the defense multiple times during one possession. And that's what the Raptors are doing to us now. And we're all going to have to wake up and get used to it. So I think with Pirtle on the floor, they're playing a different defense. They're not playing 5 in, which means everybody's responsible to come and rotate to the post and do help defense for the blow by. And they're doing 4 or 1 in or 4, you know what I mean? So you've got 4 perimeter defenders, and then you got your center all the time as your post defender. And we weren't playing that before. And all the ESPN people say, of course they're tremendous, even more tremendous defensively now, because they really needed that center. And they need that height. And Pascal as a 5 means you're always scrambling. And with the real center down there, now everybody gets to stay home a little bit more, and the perimeter's even more insane than it used to be. So anyway, that's what I'm excited about. I'm not excited about our offense, but then I'm hopeful that whether it's the fourth pick or some superstar, not necessarily superstar, but some good scorer, whatever. I don't know who we're going after. Like I told you, I'm excited about Keegan Murray, but I think the Sacramento people, having listened to them, they might say no, like we said no with Scottie. They're that high on that kid. But Keegan Murray, I think with his outside shooting would fit with Scottie like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think shooters in general are great. Movement shooters are even better. Not a huge Keegan Murray fan, but I remember our boy Leo over for the Sacramento Kings when when he messaged about, oh my God, I can't believe the Kings picked, or we were talking about Keegan Murray versus Jaden Ivey at the draft, and I was like, look, like I think he's a lot better than people probably give him credit for right now. He's one of the least, he's one of the most mistake-free basketball players that I've ever seen. When I saw him at Iowa last year. So, I mean, intelligence transfers and translates up a level, and clearly he's good. I think there's a bit of a limited upside, but I'll be happy to be proven wrong. Good kid, good basketball player. I think, yeah, he would fit around Scottie for sure. All right, Mario, thanks a lot. As always, very lively discussion with you, and have a great night. And I guess you're on the West Coast, so yeah, a little bit earlier for you than it is for us on the East Coast here.
Yeah, it's just midnight.
I mean, I'm not even on the East Coast. Why am I capping like I'm in Nova Scotia or something? This is not the East Coast. But I mean, it's Eastern Coast-ish, Atlantic. Yeah.
You're directly north of Miami.
That's true. Yep. All right. Cheers, man.
All right, ciao.
Have a good one. Okay, Alvarez, have you figured out the mic? No, you haven't. It just says device is not connected, so we're gonna call that a night. I'm gonna see if the Fred VanVleet video loaded up. I think it did. Maybe, possibly. Did it? It didn't. Apparently Fred VanVleet put the refs on blast tonight. I don't like this necessarily, this adversarial thing that the Raptors are creating for themselves. Last game I was very critical of Nick Nurse for being, very spazzy with the refs. I can't say for sure because I wasn't watching him as much tonight, but I didn't see anything that stuck out to me tonight with the Raptors and the refs. So that was good. It's a good thing. You don't want to become the team that just refs hate. There's the topic that I just very briefly wanted to touch on just because, a couple of people messaged me about it and it's been just sort of in the ether and it's been talked about a lot. And that is what has been going on over at ESPN with Kendrick Perkins and JJ Redick. Now, it's not exactly my place necessarily to speak on race. We've talked about it a couple times on this channel in various capacities. This concept of, why do, so the long and short of the argument is that, Kendrick Perkins believes that Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, and Nikola Jokic have won MVPs largely because they are white. And that in the years that those guys won, that deserving black players were robbed. It's hard for me to say that Nikola Jokic should not deserve MVP or that Dirk Nowitzki did not deserve MVP the years that those guys won it. I think, to me, the argument for them is crystal. It's as good an argument for them as it was for Shaq when he won it, for Duncan when he won it. Like, I cannot see the argument against those guys winning it. The Nash MVPs, to me, are a black mark in NBA history. I will always feel that way. I think it's very difficult to look at the team that Kobe had. Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, shout out Kwame Brown. No disrespect intended at all. But that team was really, really not talented. He got them to the playoffs. And I think Perkins said that they would have won 8 games or something without him. And I think that's fair. If you elevate your team by that much, I think LeBron James probably deserves at least 3 more MVPs. I mean, the players that beat him out were black, so, say what you will. We think about race in terms of black and white, but so often I think shadeism needs to come into it too. Are is a white voter. Like, and I wouldn't even be talking about this if it was not for Skip Bayless one time claiming Blake Griffin because he's half white. Do you remember? Do you remember Blake Griffin? You know, and he said, "Shouldn't I have a right to be a little proud of him? Can I claim him as half white?" And I was like, bro, if this is the way these guys think, there's no way that race is not a factor in how they vote, is how they think. Is Steph Curry more appealing to a white voter than Allen Iverson? Is Steph Curry, is Fred VanVleet more marketable to a white person who has a bias, a racial bias, than someone like LeBron James? You know, is there some sort of shadism going on there? I mean, even when you talk about eye color, skin color, how someone talks, it would be ridiculous given the NBA's history with race to assume, and just in general, like the politics. I mean, look, fuck, man, how can we assume that something that impacts work, politics, and everything does not seep into sports? It's crazy to me. I don't think that it's. I don't think that I'm not a big Kendrick Perkins fan. Just gonna put it out there. I'm not a huge fan of him. He sounds like an absolute moron sometimes, but I think he has a point here. And if he thinks that he's speaking on behalf of frustrated black athletes, as he says, he's like, there's a lot of black athletes that have been really, really frustrated by this sort of implicit bias that 80% of the NBA media is white, that a lot of the people that own these studios, ESPN, Disney, et cetera, whatever, are white. I get it. And I think he has a point. I'm not saying he's right about everything. I'm not saying that he's right that Nikola Jokic and Dirk Nowitzki shouldn't have won MVPs or whatever. His arguments are full of idiotic holes and whatever. But I definitely think when you go back and you listen to how the NBA dealt with the malice in the house, when you go back and you listen to how ESPN and all these news reporters, and I mean, the scandals, it's like one every year, man. The whole Rachel Nichols thing. And when you go back and you listen to how they addressed those athletes, thugs, the word thugs. You go back to 2021, you got fucking Doug Smith calling Dwight Howard a thug. And you're telling me that there's no racial connotation to how this guy thinks? He wouldn't call Ty Domi a thug. I'll tell you that, right? It's a subtle context, a subtext of how people address certain things that gives me a vision or view into how they think and their worldview and their implicit biases, whether they have acknowledged it to themselves or not. What's the solution? Is the solution just more inclusion? Is the solution more representation in the voting department? Is it going to change everything to simply just mandate that you have more black voters voting for all NBA MVP? I don't think so. Because unlike most people, I don't judge every single person based on the color of their skin. I do not think that just because a whole bunch of white people decide 3 or 4 black people and 2 Asian people deserve to have votes, that those people aren't part of the same fucking cult and the same club. Right? In order to have true representation, you need to have true democracy. And there's no such thing as a democracy when it comes to NBA voting and business and sports business in general. It's the go along, get along club. You think I'm about to get a vote? Really? Get real. You got to play politics. You got to be in with the right same people. Like, I remember, and this is an example of a film festival, but I remember someone criticizing the Penn Ast Film Festival for not being diverse enough on our team, right? We had a person from Belarus, a person from Serbia, a person from Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia, Georgia, like country Georgia. We had a Japanese person, a Russian person, a Ukrainian person, and another Russian person, and 2 Serbian people. That was our team. You'll notice that there are no black people on that. There's no brown people on that, right? So there's no Hispanic people on that. So they accuse us of not being diverse enough. right? But we were so diverse. We were coming from different countries, different backgrounds, different cultures. We had all met in Canada. We were all immigrants. I think that was a very diverse team. Some people might say, well, you're missing this checkbox, this checkbox, this checkbox. But then I look at this other, festival, and I'm not going to name the festival, and they were like, that's an example of diversity. And I'm like, okay, that person, and that person, that's a black person, an Asian person, a brown person, and a white person. You calling that diversity? But those motherfuckers all grew up on the same fucking block. They come from the same country. They're all born in Canada. How are they any more diverse than us? That's kind of the point. I think for true diversity of ideas, you need to open yourself up to true democracy, true open-mindedness, right? Don't do this diversity mandate shit. In my opinion, it doesn't. But then on the other hand, it's probably the diversity mandate stuff and the representation stuff is probably better than the all white club. So if it's a step in the right direction that you want, sure, go that way. Maybe 80% of the voters in a league that is over 80% black doesn't make a hell of a lot of fucking sense, right? So maybe, if you were a black player and you wanted, say like, why don't the voters represent the players a little bit more? Then you could also start asking, why don't the voters, why don't the players represent the owners? Or why don't the owners represent the players more? Why don't the consumers represent the players as well? I think this gets into a whole bunch of ugly conversations that maybe we as a society do not want to have about money, disparity, wealth gaps between, certain races. So anyway, long story short, I'm kind of happy Kendrick Perkins brought this up because I think it's a conversation that probably needs to be had. I kind of wish someone smarter than him was having it, but nevertheless, it's a discussion. ESPN is a platform. ESPN, spends a lot of time creating absolutely garbage and totally horseshit, takes. This guy's a choker. That guy sucks. This guy, whatever, Maybe for once they have actually veered into something substantial that needs to be discussed, which is, is it a problem? Are these voters a problem? Yeah. Anyway, so that's sort of those are my complicated thoughts. And Jason, I don't know about that. I think he genuinely believes what he's saying, but I could be wrong. Maybe he does just want to stir up shit. I mean, controversy sells. Getting people angry on the internet at you apparently sells. I promise you what I was trying to do earlier today with the Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet low light videos was not make people angry. To be honest, I didn't even want to release the Fred VanVleet video, but I'd been working on it for a while and I saw it and I was like, shit, I really do want to get this out of the way because I have other content that I want to do. I want to do a Jakob Poeltl video. That's like a good video. I want to do a Scottie review, which is like a very honest sort of take on what's gone right and wrong for him this year and what he might be able to do next year and what he needs to work on this off season. I want to do like other videos, draft reviews. Like there's so many things that I want to do for this channel, and it's just like, man, these low light videos, I just want to get these out of the way in one day. So that's what I did. And yeah. Anyway, to anyone who's not subscribed, please subscribe. It really would help us out a lot. I said 50 earlier. I think it's closer to like 35 subscribers today. We lost 35 subscribers. So now God damn it, we are 2.5 weeks away from celebrating 5,000 subscribers. And now we are comfortably under 4,990 subscribers, like 85. So please help us get back to 5,000 subscribers until I inevitably, release a video in 2 weeks and cost us another 100 subscribers. I'm so glad this is privately owned and nobody owns my ass, because I would be fired for making some of the videos that I do. But, a very wise woman once told me, tell people the truth and make it their problem. I don't think that I lied once in that Pascal Siakam video. I think he's got issues as a closer. And, it was really nice to see tonight that he relinquished those opportunities to someone who's a little bit more suited for it mentally. I would like to see that player who's more suited for it mentally get closer to Pascal Siakam skills wise in terms of development. And that's what off seasons are for. So anyway, have a good night, guys. Take care. And thank you to all the callers, Coach Mo, Vince, Mario, Lane, everyone who called in. Really appreciated the conversations tonight. All right. Cheers. Bye. Oh, and make sure to hit like on the way out. How do we have so few likes on this video? Make sure to hit like. It takes 2 seconds to hit like, and it'll get this video out to more people who need to see it.